Welcome to the fantasy audiobook. Naruto. Unlimited enhancement every 60 days. Chapter 41. The content of this Chunin exam is basically the same as the last time. Because of Gaara's strong request, and also because of Konoha's Death Forest, candidates are already familiar with it, so the place for the second survival trial was changed to Sunagakure's Demon Desert. Demon Desert, a dangerous area outside Sunagaku. Quicksand, ruins, monsters, and people in it may die at any time. What's more, there are multiple teams from different ninja villages robbing each other of the scrolls. Generally speaking, the content of this exam is similar to the last one, but it is more dangerous. Because the desert environment is far more cruel than the jungle. The exam begins. The next morning, the time is up. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Following the examiner's order, each team jumped off the city wall from different directions and entered the Demon Desert, officially starting the second round of examinations. Oh, it's finally relaxed. For the second exam, the time limit is 3 days. As soon as the students leave, Rayya, who is the team leader, will be fine. Rayya took out a playing card from his pocket and greeted Gangzi Tetsu and Shenyu Izumo. Come on, fight the landlord. Is it still 102? Yes, the bomb doubled. Today, I must win back all the losses I lost last night. Ah, I am full of energy. Then, on the wall of Sunagaku, Rayya, the leader of the team, and the 3 Konoha shinobi, fought the landlord grandiosely. Seeing this scene, the sand shinobi ninja couldn't help but shook his head secretly. These Konoha shinobi were so relaxed. Especially that Takagi Rayya. It is really unimaginable that the Chunin exam 2 years ago would be able to defeat their current Funging Gaara. Trick. It must have used some kind of shameless tactics, otherwise how could it be possible to defeat Lord Funging with him? Playing cards with 2 avatars, I don't know if those 2 guys will admit it if they win. Rayya, who drew a good hand, couldn't help thinking. Just this morning, the 3 of them suddenly got a call from Hokage, asking them to secretly protect Fukage Gaara. According to intelligence, Sand Shinobi has rebellious power within Sand Shinobi, which intends to disadvantage Gaara. The Chunin exam was also intentional by Gara and wanted to dig out these people. As an ally, if Funging is killed, it will have a great impact on Konoha. So Tsunade sent the 3 of them to protect them secretly. This is the real task, right? Rayya chuckled at the corner of his mouth, saying that he was leading the exam but actually helping Gaara. But what puzzles him is, since it is such an important task, why not send Jonin, but the 3 of them Chunin? Is it because Rayya, Tsunade believes in his abilities so much? It's useless to think too much, just to perform the task. Since it is secretly protected, it must be hidden first. Therefore, Rayya let Z Tetsu and Izumo make a clone, and fight with him here to confuse the rebels in Sand Shinobi. As for Rayya herself, although it seems that he is fighting the landlord here, in fact, the radariers have covered the entire Sunagaku, watching for any disturbances. Due to the need to concentrate, 4 2 belts and 2 sharp ones were thrown out. Looking at the remaining bad cards, Rayya wondered, since he is playing cards with the clone, he can go wrong if he loses. On the first day, everything was normal and calm. The next day, Rayya took 2 avatars and continued to play cards. Sand Shinobi shook his head for a while, playing with things which really didn't fit their forbearance. And Z-Tai and Izumo have hidden the dark place again, paying close attention to Gaara. If there are rebels, Gaara's guarding power will definitely be calculated. And Z-Tai and Izumo, who were not in their expectations, could play a decisive role. Tweet, Chew. Seeing that the sun was already westward, a piercing siren suddenly sounded and spread throughout Sunagaku in an instant. What's the situation, sandstorm? Rayya was startled slightly, and then learned through monitoring that a sandstorm was about to strike. In the original work, Fui, the rebel of Sand Shinobi, interfered with the weather forecast through the enchantment, so that the village did not receive timely news of the sandstorm. Because the sandstorm was too dangerous and time was too short, Gaara personally went to the Demon Desert to rescue Jonin, who took the exam. And this is exactly the purpose of Fui. He has secretly contacted Fei, who can seize the power of the tail beast, and asked him to ambush Gaara in the Demon Desert. It's not right, but at this time, the detection was not disturbed, and Sand Shinobi's news was not delayed. That being the case, the rescue is organized immediately. Why should we be so nervous? Iron Sand, Devil Wind. Continue to monitor. Rayya was startled first, then his face changed suddenly. This sandstorm is not ordinary sand, but a devilish wind that contains a lot of iron. Strong winds of up to 20 levels, wrapped in fists or even watermelon-sized iron stones, whizzed along the ground. Not to mention people, even the strong walls will be destroyed instantly. Sunagakur is located in the desert and the geographical environment is harsh. But this kind of devilish wind, especially of this scale and intensity, is not seen in 10 years. Therefore, when the devil wind was detected, Sand Shinobi immediately sounded the alarm, and the whole village entered an emergency state. Quick, quick, quick. Under the guidance of the ninja, all civilians were immediately transferred to the underground to take refuge. Here, get in place quickly. In addition, a large number of ninjas came to the edge of the village and stood in a row with firm expressions facing the coming direction of the devil wind. People can take refuge underground, but as for housing construction, if the devil wind is allowed to rage, Sunagakur will be razed to the ground. Therefore, recruit a large number of ninjas, and when the devil wind arrives, join forces to display the barrier to protect the village. What about the genins outside? This time the level of the devil wind is too high. With our manpower, it is already very difficult to protect the village. What do you mean? Give up genin in the exam? This is definitely not good. But we have no other way. Master Fengying, please focus on the overall situation. At this time, in Fengying's office, Gara and Sand Shinobi had a fierce quarrel. Even if you are a shadow, you can't go it alone. So in the end, Gara was asked to sit in the village. As for the candidates outside, they can only leave themselves to fend for themselves. What? In the Devil's Desert, candidates from various villages are doing their best to take the exam. Neji, who owns Byakugan, suddenly saw something strange in the distance. What is this? When he focused his eyesight and saw the devilish wind that was coming quickly, Neji's face changed suddenly. What happened? What's going on? The other teams also had a lot of perception-type ninjas, and they noticed the abnormalities more or less for a while. It's the devilish wind. And when Sunagakur's alarm sounded, those Sand Shinobi's complexions changed instantly, and one by one collapsed on the ground. With the power of the devil wind, even Jonin could not resist. The only way was to hide underground. But wherever the devil wind passes, its powerful force will also blow the ground more than 10 meters away. This is a desert. How can a rugged cave with a depth of more than 10 meters be created? It is precisely because of this clearly that Sand Shinobi is so heartbroken. What is that? Oh my god! The speed of the devil wind was so fast that it was approaching in an instant, and Jonin had noticed it during the exam. Seeing such a huge and terrifying momentum, each of them paled. In addition to horror, their hearts were filled with despair. Mom, sorry, I may not be able to go back alive. A certain team sat on the ground feebly, and could not help thinking of parents, teachers, and friends out of fear. My heart is full of regret. Why didn't I stay with them much before regretting? Whoosh! At this moment, a figure suddenly appeared, standing in front of them. Quote. The three of them stopped crying, raised their heads, and saw a not very tall, but unusually determined figure, and their faces were instantly surprised. Master Fengying, don't worry, you can definitely see Mom again. Gara looked firm in the direction of the devil's wind. Can I only save them? At the same time, Gara frowned secretly. The speed of the devil wind was too fast, and he had no time to gather the candidates together for protection. In this way, you can only help the three people in front of you first. At this time, the devil wind is very close, and Gara can't even think about it, and is ready to deal with it with all his strength. Such a powerful devilish wind, even for him, is very difficult. Master Fengying. At the same time, in Sunagakur, the guard discovered that the so-called Fengying was actually a sand clone. The real Gara has long been missing. Bad. At the same time, Zitai and Izumo, who were in charge of secret protection, frowned. Gara has escaped their protection, and if there is any danger next, it will be in trouble. Thinking of this, the two left quickly, and they had to inform Rayya. At this moment, on the wall, there are only two clones holding the cards in a daze, and Rayya has long disappeared. It's over. Unexpectedly, I would die in this way. I'm really unwilling. The devil's wind is very close, and the black is pressed against it. As countless iron body rolls, it is surrounded by countless thunderous noises. Seeing this scene like the end of the world, all the candidates in the demon desert were filled with despair. Natural disasters of this magnitude are simply beyond their ability to contend. When they signed up for the Chunin exam, they were already mentally prepared for death, but dying in this way is really unacceptable. But what can they do? Whoosh! The devil's wind is already in sight, just when everyone is ready to die. The sound of breaking through the air suddenly sounded, and a figure suddenly appeared in the air, appearing at the forefront of the devil wind. That is, someone suddenly recognized the harness that was hunting and dancing in the wind, and the huge scroll that was already on his back. It's the Konoha shinobi, the leader of Konoha's Chunin. Rayya. For a while, surprised, everyone wondered, isn't he in the village? At this time, if I didn't take refuge in the village, why did I show up here? Leaf hurricane. At this moment, I only heard Rayya shout. Whoosh, 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 whoosh. Dozens of kunai were kicked in all directions instantly. Whoosh, 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 whoosh. And the next moment, I saw Ryuya's figure, constantly flashing in midair. At this time, Rayya drew a huge brush from the center of the scroll, using chakra as the ink. In the midair, traces were drawn wherever the figure passed. This is, each time Rayya flashes, it is 300 to 400 meters, and immediately after that, a mark has been drawn between his two figures. Ryuya's body replacement technique, although it is a teleportation, is not a space ninjutsu. He has passed the actual distance. As a result, Rayya is extremely fast, and in a blink of an eye, a huge pattern covering hundreds of miles in a radius has appeared in the air. Seal of the 4 elephants. I haven't eaten pork and seen pigs running. At this time, someone has recognized that this is the world-famous seal of the 4 elephants. What is he going to do? At the same time, everyone was full of doubts, and drew the 4-image seal technique in midair. What exactly is this Konoha shinobi going to do? Swish. And at this time, Rayya was already making seals quickly. See Highway Mao Shuzi Yu. Could he? Everyone was stunned, and then was shocked again. Is he going to cast the seal of the 4 elephants? In the eyes of other village ninjas, the name Konoha Chunin is not even as good as their genin. How is it possible that even Jonin can't master this kind of super difficult S-level forbidden technique? Moreover, in this case, in the face of this kind of natural disaster that destroys everything, what use is the sealing technique? Does he want to seal the devil wind? It's ridiculous. It's like a joke, but suddenly recovered. What Rayya did at this time, isn't it about to seal the devilish wind, but how is this possible? You know, even if it is matched with a scroll or a technique that has already been written down, the range of the seal technique is at most 110 meters. And this devilish wind has a range of 200 to 300 miles, how can this be contained by the seal? Seal the devil wind. Compared with other ordinary genin, Gara, as a wind shadow, has a deeper understanding of ninjutsu. But because of this, he knew how difficult it was. Even he can only use sand to make walls, resist the devil's wind, and protect a few people. He could not even think of sealing the entire devil wind directly. It's obviously impossible, but Gara suddenly had a ridiculous idea. If it were Rayya, it might be possible to perform miracles. What is that? The 4 elephants are sealed. At the same time, Sunagaker, who was still behind the devil's desert, was already ready to open the enchantment and resist the devil's wind. Sand Shinobi suddenly saw the huge art styles appearing in the sky. All of them were shocked. A technique of this scale, at this time, does anyone want to seal the devilish wind? But how is this possible? Who is he? At the same time, they couldn't help wondering who the figure before the operation was. Noon sea. At this time, the devil wind was already in front of him, and Rayya had already finished the seal. Snapped. With a soft sound, Rayya clasped his hands together, and yelled in the face of the devilish wind that was close at hand. Seal. When the devil wind was close at hand, everyone closed their eyes subconsciously and waited for death to come. Seal. At this moment, a loud shout resounded across the sky. Immediately afterwards, everything returned to peace. Am I already dead? The people in the devil's desert thought that the devil's wind passed by, and they had turned into dust and ascended to another world. But it feels like the body is still there. This is. It was not until a moment later that everyone opened their eyes tentatively. At this moment, look again, where is there any devilish wind, and there is a blue sky in front of him, not even a trace of wind. What happened? For a while, everyone was in a trance again. Could it be all hallucinations? There was no devilish wind at all. Wrong. But then he shook his head. How could the experience of life and death just now be an illusion? That is. At this time, everyone suddenly saw the figure slowly falling from midair. Konoha Shinobi. That Chunin. For a while, everyone remembered that it was the Konoha Chunin that they despised, who suddenly stood in front of all of them and sealed the devilish wind with the shocking 4-image seal. The devil wind that swallowed hundreds of miles was completely sealed. What kind of strength is this? Thinking of this, the ninjas in other villages couldn't help but shook their heads with a wry smile. This man really shouldn't be Chunin. This terrifying strength, I am afraid it has surpassed Jonin, reaching the shadow level. Before thinking of them, Jonin, they even laughed unscrupulously. Rayya was really ignorant and full of shame for a while, wishing to bury his head in the sand. As expected of my Rayya. At this time, the recovered Ino shouted with excitement, and hugged Sakura tightly with excitement. You're Rayya, haha. For this nymphomaniac's best friend, little Sakura can barely smile. But thinking about it again, Ino's transferring love is a good thing for her. It's still not as good as him. Looking at Rayya, who had fallen back to the ground, Gara smiled bitterly and shook his head. After becoming funnying, I thought I could get closer to Rayya. It now appears that instead of zooming in, he was thrown farther away. Such a gap, I am afraid that he will be unable to catch up with his life. It was sealed. On Sunagaku's side, the sand shinobi who were ready to hold up the ban, saw the sealed devil wind, and their heart was full of horror. At the same time, I can't help but become more curious, who is the figure performing the sealing technique in the air? If it is a companion, it is undoubtedly the blessing for the entire sand shinobi. But if it is an enemy, it will also become the entire sand shinobi, a huge disaster 100 times more terrifying than the devil wind. It's earned. At this time, putting away the small scroll with the devilish wind in his hand, a chuckle appeared at the corner of Ryuya's mouth. If you can seal it, you can unblock it, and once it is unblocked, the terrifying devilish wind will instantly reappear. With the power of the devil's wind, if this scroll is used well, it will have unexpected effects. Although it was so hard to practice the trick, I missed it so easily, but it was not a loss to get this scroll. Rayya, who is complacent because of this scroll, doesn't know yet. After today's incident, the name, Seal Ninja Takagi Rayuya, will surpass, Stand by Rayuya, and it will resound through the 5 nations and the entire ninja world. However, the 3 villages of Mist Shinobi, Layan, and Rock Shinobi, who did not take the exam, were not able to get accurate information about Ryuya's sealing technique because they failed to see this scene with their own eyes. Of course, these are things to follow. The threat of the devilish wind disappeared, and then Chunin's examination continued. Gara. In Rayuya somewhere in the demon desert, Radar is always watching Gara and other important figures. Although he stopped the devil wind, Gara also left the village and went to the devil's desert and fell into the trap of the rebels. At this time, Rayuya also understood that it is no wonder that the rebels did not interfere with the forecast of the sandstorm, because in the face of such a terrifying devil wind, the entire sand shinobi has to do its best, and there is no need to further shorten the time. Coming. And then, the devilish wind is like an episode, and what should happen still happened. Gara, who was careless, was calculated by the law, and the tail beast in his body was being drawn out. With the task of protecting Fenkage, Rayuya did not move when Gara was in danger. What a funny girl. Because he has heard, Seven Tails Jinchuriki Fu is rushing towards Gara. After she arrived, as in the original work, she took the initiative to hit the technique of Method 1 to help Gara share the pain. Seeing this scene, Rayuya couldn't help but smile. I was a little nervous about this young girl who was full of sunshine, loudly laughing and always shouting to make friends, and couldn't help becoming more interested. Because of the addition of a tail beast, Fai's burden has also greatly increased, and the speed of extracting the tail beast has also been much slower. In this way, precious time was gained. The third squad arrived as a rescue, and under the leadership of Neji, finally defeated Fei and saved Gara and Fu. Just like watching a play, Rayya didn't take any action or intervened during the whole process, and then got up and left. Rayya. At this time, Zitai and Izumo arrived. Finally found Rayya and said anxiously, Feng Ying is gone, we are worried that he is already in danger, we must hurry up. All right. Rayya smiled, stopped the shoulders of the two of them, and walked in the direction of Sand Shinobi. It's okay. Never mind. Rather than worry about him, let's settle the accounts. Settlement? What account? Listen to me slowly. Yesterday, you and I fought a total of 103 landlords. Among them, I won 97 of them. Of these 97, 21 bombs doubled, and 2 of them 3 times. The bomb was quadrupled, and once again it was terrible, 3 bombs in total. We don't know anything. Hearing Ryuya's algorithm, the recovered Ziti and Izumo looked at each other, then broke free, turned and ran. As Chunin, how much money they earn by working hard to do tasks, Rayya is trying to clean up their wives. How can you do this? Don't run, everyone is in the same village, and I will give you a discount. Why do you run away more and more shouting? Seeing the two quickly running away, Rayya yelled and chased him with a chuckle at the corner of his mouth, finally confused. I am ashamed to say that in the past 2 days of fighting the landlords, Rayya actually loses more and loses less. Anyhow, the strengthened super brain couldn't beat the 2 clones unexpectedly. Another day later, the Chunin exam came to a perfect conclusion. On Sand Shinobi's side, Gara also took the opportunity to find the rebels and eliminate the hidden dangers. When everything was over, Rayya and the 3 of them led the team and led Konoha back. When they return to the village, based on their performance in the exam, Hokage will announce who will be promoted. You go first, I will catch up soon. After leaving the territory of the Kingdom of Wind, Rayya suddenly said, and then ran straight in a certain direction. 30 minutes have passed, isn't it? What are you urging? Don't hinder me from performing the ceremony. Every time you engage in such a low-level and interesting prayer, can't you omit it? I also know the trouble, but this is the commandment, what can be done? Moreover, what is omission? This is blasphemous. In the depths of a forest, a man wearing a fire cloud robe drew a black spear inserted from his chest, and then he got up from a formation painted by blood. Next to him, there is a man who also wears a Huion robe. He can't make an expression while wearing a mask, but he is obviously impatient. They are not others, but Akatsuki's Hidan, code-named 3, and Kakuzu, code-named North, known as the Undead Duo. On the ground not far away, there were 3 people lying on the ground, but it was the 3 genin from Takanin village who took the Chunin exam this time. 2 of the men were dead, and the only woman, who was also seriously injured, was lying motionless on the ground. Let's go, the next stop is the Land of Thunder. Kakuzu said, and then he was about to pick up Fu. Shit. At this moment, a crisp sound of breaking through the air sounded, and a sword aura suddenly flew out from the depths of the woods and went straight to Kakuzu. Although accidental, as a character in the first Hokage period, Kakuzu has a wealth of combat experience and reacts very quickly. A back jump can be avoided in time. At the same time, after a few more times, he leapt away and back to Hidan, looking at the front warily. Whoosh! The next moment, a figure flashed, it was Rayya. Konoha's stand-in Rayya. After seeing Rayya, Kakuzu's gaze waved slightly, and then he said something. The head is offering a reward of 10 million taels on the black market. Kill, 10 million, so many. Rayya just wanted to say hello. When she heard this, her mouth opened wide in surprise. He knows the existence of the black market, many of which have been assassinated by the 5 major countries. But he didn't expect that the head of a Konoha Chunin in him was so valuable. Kill him. As the financial manager of Akatsuki, Kakuzu is interested in money. Looking at Rayya with cold eyes, he said to Hidan next to him. But what Kakuzu didn't know was that even if he killed Rayya, the person who offered the reward would not even pay him 1 or 2. Because Konin, who also belongs to Shao, doesn't need to pay Shao's members. However, Rayya obviously did not just pass by, but came to save this 7 taels Jinchuriki. So even if it's not for money, Kakuzu will kill Rayya. Then kill it. Hearing Kakuzu's instructions, Hidan shouted in excitement, waved the huge sickle in his hand, and rushed to Rayya excitedly. As a believer of Cthulhu, what Hidan likes most is killing. Compared to Kakuzu killing people for money, he kills people purely for the sake of killing. Whoosh! Hidan had just rushed halfway. Rayya suddenly disappeared from where he was, and when I looked at the next moment, he had reached Hidan's side. Hee. Seeing Rayya rushing up hastily, Hidan's mouth sneered. He has an immortal body, and the most feared thing is close hand-to-hand combat. Moreover, with Cthulhu's curse, the death division is based on blood. As long as you get the opponent's blood, you can share the damage through rituals, and then defeat or kill the opponent through self-mutilation. In fact, he was able to defeat Seven-Tails Jinchuriki's Fu because of this ability. At this time, Rayya rushed forward, just in time for him to take the blood. Leaf Hurricane. But the next moment, before Hidan had time to react, Rayya gave a soft drink and kicked it up. After strengthening 86,400 times, Leaf Hurricane is also known as the 10,000 Tornado, and facing the immortal Hidan, Rayya has no strength at all. This is your own search. Hidan, who was proud, never expected that Rayya's foot would be so heavy. The next moment, it was almost like being hit by an asteroid, and then he flew out. Hidan. Next to him, Kakuzu looked surprised and couldn't help but yelled, but at this time, there was a figure of Hidan. Kakuzu's face was gloomy for a moment, and he turned to Rayya again. Where did you get him? I do not know either. Rayya said helplessly, then said with a smile. But at least, it has to be hundreds of kilometers away. Quote. Hearing this, Kakuzu frowned again. Although he didn't believe it, Rayya could kick people hundreds of kilometers with one kick. But one thing is certain, with the power of the kick just now, Hidan must have fallen to pieces. Although Hidan has an immortal body, after his limbs are separated, he cannot reorganize himself and cannot move. In other words, it is impossible for Hidan to help. It's intelligence dealer. Kakuzu gritted his teeth and said, obviously, his information is incomplete, and this incomplete information cost him hundreds of thousands of taels. Puff, puff, puff. Kakuzu seemed to be annoyed, but in fact he had launched an attack. The next moment, countless black lines shot out from the ground, piercing Rayya instantly. Pong! But then, with a muffled noise, Rayuya's bloody corpse turned directly into a stone. Whoosh! Then there was a sound of breaking through the air, and Rayya appeared behind Kakuzu and was about to attack. Boom! But at this moment, Kakuzu's clothes split instantly, and several masks appeared from behind. With a loud noise, a flame was spit out from the mouth of a mask. It was fire-style ninjutsu head hard. Whoosh! Rayya seemed to be prepared long ago, and moved away again before being hit by the flames. In a flash, Rayya and Kakuzu confronted one after another, and the tricks were dangerous and fatal, but in the end no one hurt anyone. Quote. Kakuzu looked at Rayya, his face becoming more solemn. From giving Hidan no chance, kicking him directly, to avoiding his own two surprise attacks one after another. Kakuzu can't help but speculate that maybe Rayya knows their abilities. I can see it. Upon seeing this, Rayya smiled and said directly. To resent, manipulate the black thread in the body, seize the heart of others, obtain its chakra and ninjutsu, and the secret technique of one more life. How did you know? As expected, Rayya knew his abilities. Kakuzu's face grew gloomy, and his eyes grew colder as he watched Rayya. Once the ability is known to others, it is easy to develop targeted tactics, which is extremely dangerous in this ninja world. Guess what? Rayya chuckled lightly at the corner of his mouth, and now his right hand was already holding the handle of the knife. Draw a knife. Laugh. With a soft sound, a sword gas slashed towards Kakuzu in an instant. Similar to the body replacement technique of teleportation, the sharp slash, and the horrible body technique of power, these combined Rayya are really too tricky. The leakage of his own capabilities, coupled with the lack of Hidan's cooperation, the objective situation is also very unfavorable for Kakuzu. Mission abandoned. As an experienced ninja, the first thing to learn is to analyze the situation. After thinking for a while, Kakuzu glanced at Fu on the ground, then turned and jumped into the depths of the woods, disappearing. Ran. Seeing the angle of escape, Rayya chuckled, but did not chase. Although he knows Kakuzu's abilities, but again, he doesn't have a few whole cards. Moreover, facing Kakuzu who has 5 lives, it is not easy to kill him. What's more, Ryuya's goal this time is not Akatsuki, but Seven Tails Jinchuriki. Akatsuki captured Jinchuriki in order to extract the tail beasts, so before that, he would not kill them. Fu lay motionless on the ground, but was not dead, only seriously injured. Go. To prevent Akatsuki from returning, Rayya picked up Fu and left. After a while, on the edge of a stream, Rayya put Fu down and let her sit against a rock. I have to say that Jinchuriki, who is a sealed tail beast, has extremely strong vitality. Rayya doesn't know how to heal ninjutsu and cannot help Fu heal, but she is much better with her strong resilience alone. Thank you. Fu looked at Rayya and said with a smile as hard as he could. Can you make friends with me? Do you know why they want to arrest you? Rayya ignored it and asked directly. Fu shook her head. All she knew was that the angle was Takanin Village's betrayal. But as a character in the first generation period, if it is for revenge, it is obviously unreasonable. They belong to the Akatsuki organization. Their purpose is to catch the tail beasts, gather all the tail beasts, and create a super weapon. Then, with this weapon, everyone is afraid of them, through intimidation and threats, to achieve so-called world peace. Rayuya said briefly and introduced Akatsuki's original purpose under Nagato's leadership. Of course, behind Akatsuki are Obito, Uchiha Madara, and Black Zetsu, all of whom have deeper and more dangerous purposes. It turned out to be so. After listening, Fu nodded. Since it is a catch tail beast, and she is Seven Tails Jinchuriki, it makes sense. In fact, she also knew that besides the tail beast, she had nothing else to be coveted by others. Prior to this, the Akatsuki organization had been collecting intelligence and accumulating money. It was also recently that they started their formal operations. Rayuya continued the introduction, then asked again. But do you know why you were selected first? Fu shook his head slightly, saying that he didn't know. Because you are the easiest. Rayuya looked serious and said mercilessly. Except for Three Tails, which is in a wild state and whose whereabouts are uncertain, you are not the weakest among the 8 Jinchuriki. But Takanin Village where you are located is the only small village with Jinchuriki, but outside the 5 hidden villages. Quote. Quote. Hearing Ryuya's words, Fu opened his mouth, but in the end he said nothing. Even though he was seriously injured, the smile that never disappeared on his face finally disappeared completely, replaced by a struggling pain in the depths of his pupils. As Rayuya said, the reason why she became Akatsuki's first goal was because Taki Shinobu was weak and she did not have a strong enough backer. But she does not resent Takanin Village for this. She loves her village and her companions. But precisely because of this, she had to leave Takanin Village. Today, due to the appearance of Rayuya, Akatsuki retreats temporarily, but she will definitely come again. At that time, if Fu continued to stay in Takanin Village, he would definitely hurt the village. In fact, the 2 companions killed today are proof. For the safety of the village, she must stay away. What are your plans in the future? Just when Fu thought of this and felt pain in his heart, Rayuya suddenly asked. Wandering around, Fu raised his head, the corners of his mouth curled up to reveal a brilliant smile, but tears couldn't help streaming down. Instead of, Rayuya looked at Fu and suddenly said seriously. Follow me. What did you say? Fu couldn't help but stared at Rayuya in a daze. After I said, you can follow me. Rayuya said solemnly again, and then reached out to Fu. Then Fu regained consciousness, and asked for a long while tentatively. Can we be friends? Can. Great. Fu, who was still seriously injured, shouted happily and jumped up directly. Instead of holding Ryuya's outstretched hand, he threw directly on Rayuya and hugged him like a baby. Quote. Rayuya was speechless for a moment. This was really an emotional guy. Fortunately, the goal is achieved. Because of the appearance of the butterfly Rayuya, many things in this world have changed. But the only thing that remains unchanged is the heart. Therefore, some people are destined to do something. From the undead duo attacking Fu, it can be seen that Akatsuki has completed the preliminary preparations and started to hunt the tail beast. In terms of time, this is also in line with the original plot. Once the chi-tailed beasts are collected by Shaoji, the next 4th ninja war will be the resurrection of 10 tails, the resurrection of Uchiha Madara, and the resurrection of Otsutsuki Kagaya. There are finished eggs under the covering nest. At that time, Rayya, as a member of this world, will not be able to take care of herself at all. That being the case, it's better to stop Akatsuki's plan from now on. Therefore, Rayya rescued Fu and received his command to keep Seven Tails firmly in his own hands. Of course, so Akatsuki keeps coming to her door, but facing Akatsuki now is easier than facing Ban and Kagaya in the not-too-distant future. Furthermore, Rayya is not a Fu, behind him is the entire powerful Konohagakure. As for the trouble or even disaster caused to Konoha, Rayya didn't realize that there was anything wrong with it. After all, everything he did, although the starting point was for himself, it also helped all mankind at the same time. Moreover, even if Rayya does not take in Fu, Konoha who owns 9 tails will still be found by Akatsuki. Can you go? Everything is in order, Rayya asked Fu. It doesn't seem to be possible. Fu smiled awkwardly. He was too excited just now, and now the wound hurts badly. In this case, there was no way, Rayya had to carry Fu. After delaying this while, Zeti and Izumo led Konoha Jonin away. Rayya was too lazy to catch up, and at this time, it was inconvenient to have direct contact with Konoha with Fu. But anyway, back to Konoha first, Rayya carried Fu and ran straight in the direction of Konohagakure. One day later, Rayya returned to Konoha. As Jinchuriki, Fu's existence is extremely sensitive, and Rayya doesn't want Konoha to know that Fu has been under his command. So before entering the village, Fu was temporarily placed outside the village, somewhere safe. Coincidentally, after all this was done, Zeti and Izumo had just arrived with a group of Konoha Jonin. Everyone happened to join together, went into the village together, and handed over tasks to Hokage together. According to everyone's performance in this exam, I officially announce as Naruto. In the Naruto office, Tsunade made an announcement directly after seeing Sand Shinobi's detailed introduction to each examinee. Rock Lee, Tenten, Hyuga Hinata, Inuzuka Tooth, Aburame Shino, Haruno Sakura, Yamanaka Ino, Akamichi Choji, promoted to Chunin. Great, promoted. Hearing this result, everyone couldn't help but get excited. And many more. But then, everyone suddenly found out. Why is there no Neji's name? In the information submitted by Sand Shinobi, Feng Ying specifically pointed out that Hyuga Neji performed exceptionally well. Tsunade smiled and said directly. So I announced that Hyuga Neji was promoted directly to Jonin. Jonin. Hearing this, everyone was startled first, and then couldn't help nodding their heads. Yes, with Neji's strength, Jonin is indeed qualified. Besides, Neji has always been used as Chunin when he was Genin. And when he heard that he was directly promoted to Jonin, Neji, who had always been calm, couldn't help but feel happy. In addition, at this time, Tsunade spoke again and said with a smile. In addition to Neji, there is one more person who is also promoted to Jonin. One more person. Who else? Everyone couldn't help being stunned. The names of those who passed the second test had already been read. How could there be one more person, and they would still be promoted to Jonin? He is the one. After deliberately selling it, Tsunade announced aloud after a pause. Takagi Rayya. Rayya. For a while, not only other people, but Rayya herself was also a little dumbfounded. He didn't take the exam, how could he get promoted? Actually, this time is both a Chunin exam and a Jonin exam. At this time, Tsunade solved the puzzle and looked at Rayya, Zeit, and Izumo. Remember, the task I gave you. Could it be that? Yes, that task is the content of the Jonin exam. It turned out to be so. For a moment, Rayya understood everything. It's no wonder that Jonin was supposed to be dispatched, but they were given 3 Chunin. It turned out that Tsunade deliberately arranged the Jonin exam. Being in another country, under the complicated circumstances of rebellion in the country, the task of protecting the shadow is indeed qualified as the content of the Jonin exam. In contrast, the seemingly complicated and cruel Chunin exam seemed a bit childish. It turned out to be so. Zetai and Izumo, who also wanted to understand, looked depressed. Compared to Rayya, who directly sealed Devil Wind and saved Feng Ying and all the candidates, the 2 of them who missed the target directly, the performance was too bad, of course they could not be promoted. Congratulations, it's been a hard journey, go back and rest. After congratulating him formally, Tsunade said with a smile. And when everyone was about to leave, I added another sentence. Rayya stayed. Dear senior sister. Everyone left, only himself. Rayya couldn't help looking at Tsunade with some worry. You are already Jonin anyway. Tsunade flipped Byakugan, then waved his hand and said. Don't worry, I won't ravage you today. I have something to ask you. That's good. Rayya patted his chest, couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief, and then said with a smile. Senior sister wants to ask anything, the younger brother knows everything is endless. After leaving Sunagakur, you left the team for a while. Tsunade looked at Rayya, his expression suddenly serious. Where have you been, what have you done? I went to save someone. I didn't expect Tsunade's news to be so well informed. In fact, even if Tsunade didn't ask, Rayya was ready to speak out. Immediately afterwards, I told him about saving him. As a valuable piece of information and to avoid the sacrifice of Asuma, Rayya emphasized the ability of the undead duo. Of course, Rayya did not say about taking Fu into his command and bringing it back. Only after he beat Kakuzu back, Fu left on his own. After listening to Ryuya's report, Tsunade couldn't help thinking. In fact, as Naruto, Tsunade already knew a little about Akatsuki. After all, Jiraiya had been tracking Orochimaru until then, so he came into contact with Akatsuki. As an organization composed entirely of S-level rebels, Jiraiya is also full of worries. In addition to Jiraiya, there are other sources of intelligence, also gathered here in Tsunade. Based on this information, it can be seen that the Akatsuki organization is brewing a big conspiracy, but it is impossible to judge for a while. Tailed Beast. Until then, after hearing Ryuya's report, Tsunade came to a conclusion, and then frowned. The Tailed Beast, as a powerful weapon, is also a weight to balance the strength of each village. The actions of Akatsuki will undoubtedly have a huge impact on the 5 major villages, and even affect the entire ninja world. The other movies must be notified immediately. Thinking of this, Tsunade immediately ordered people to come and call other villages to alert them to Akatsuki's attack on Jinchuriki. At the same time, Tsunade frowned again, reminding other villages that Jinchuriki in their village was not in the village at this time. Should be back soon. But counting the time, 2 years have passed. Naruto, who followed Jiraiya out to practice, should be coming back soon. Moreover, with Jiraiya by his side, even if he is not in the village, even if it is Akatsuki, he should not be able to treat Naruto. Because of Akatsuki, Tsunade suddenly became busy. Taking advantage of this opportunity, Ryuya quickly slipped away. The woman repeats, who knows if this old woman will suddenly rise up for a while and will ravage him again. What are you studying? Walking on the streets of Konoha, enjoying the sun and air, Ryuya couldn't help thinking. After being promoted to Jonin, he has obtained the qualification to learn B-level ninjutsu, and right now, he is also lacking skills. Go ask the teacher. Without a good idea for a while, Ryuya simply walked to Sarutobi Hiruzen's residence. Fire style. Great fireball technique. Boom. As Ryuya yelled, a ball of flame spurted out of his mouth, and then turned into a giant great fireball nearly 10 meters in diameter. Finally practiced. Seeing the fireball collapsing on the surface of the water after flying tens of meters, Ryuya couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief. In the past 2 years, although he has been cultivating the seal of the 4 elephants as painstakingly, he has occasionally done other cultivation practices. Most importantly, after taking Sarutobi's secret medicine for 2 years, Ryuya's meridians have been corrected and his cultivation talent has been improved. In this way, Ryuya finally practiced the great fireball technique. Takagi Ryuya. Level. Jonin. Organs. Ears, brain, heart. Skills. Great fireball technique, C-level ninjutsu. 1000 years of death strengthen plus 86,400 E-level physical surgery. Body replacement technique strengthen plus 86,400 E-level ninjutsu. Draw a sword and strengthen plus 86,400 E-level physical surgery. Toad oil bomb strengthen plus 86,400 C-level ninjutsu. Leaf hurricane strengthen plus 86,400 C-level ninjutsu. Clone technique strengthen plus 86,400 E-level ninjutsu. Seal of the 4 elephants enhancement plus 86,400 S-level ninjutsu. Looking at the personal page at this time, Great Fireball technique has appeared in the skill list. After the Great Fireball practice, Rayya did not rest, and immediately began a new practice. Sea High Shu, Earth Style, Earth Flow Wall. After Jonin was finished, Rayya shouted and patted the ground with both hands. But unfortunately, nothing happened. I have to say that even if Rayya's meridians get some corrections, his talent is still very low. The secret medicine of Sarutobi, in addition to repairing and correcting meridians, the main function is actually to give birth to chakra with other attributes. After 2 years of taking medicine, in addition to the original fire attribute, Rayya has unearthed more attribute chakra. With the earth attribute chakra, you can practice earth-style ninjutsu. But ninjutsu, as the foundation of a village, is strictly controlled. Unless it is the secret of each family, they must be promoted to the corresponding level in order to learn, and cannot be taught privately. Therefore, even Sarutobi Hiruzen of 3rd Hokage cannot teach the ninjutsu of Rayya village at will. Of course, the seal of the 4 elephants is an exception. It was acquired by Rayya, accidentally, and with the acquiescence of 3rd generation, others turned a blind eye. After being promoted to Jonin, he was granted permission to learn B-level ninjutsu in the village. What to learn specifically? After consulting Hiruzen, Rayya decided to learn earth-style ninjutsu Doryubi. After this ninjutsu is cast, a wall of soil can be quickly raised to defend against enemy ninjutsu attacks. And as a B-level holding back, he has a decent defense. Rayya's current skills include displacement, attack, and control, but he lacks defense. Although body replacement technique is fast, it has scope and other limitations after all. And most importantly, body replacement technique can only protect itself, not teammates and buildings. And Doryubi just made up for this. Earth Style, Earth Flow Wall. Rayya has long been accustomed to his qualifications, so although he has not made progress and is not discouraged, he still practices meticulously. After being promoted to Jonin, the task level becomes higher and the reward increases. Correspondingly, the number of tasks has decreased. After all, there are so many advanced tasks. As for more low-level missions, sending Jonin would be overkill, and as Jonin, I was embarrassed to grab that reward from Chunin and Genin. In this way, Rayya has more time to practice. Earth Style, Earth Flow Wall. After a few days, as Rayya shouted, although there was still no earth wall rising, the ground in front of him shook slightly. Rayya couldn't help but be overjoyed, and finally made progress. Naruto summoned. When I just wanted to continue practicing, I was told that Rayya moved his shoulders. It seemed that he had a task. Everyone is. Immediately after coming to the Hokage office, when seeing Kakashi, Guy, Asuma, Hong and other Jonin, Rayya couldn't help but was stunned. There were so many elite Jonin gathered. It seemed that the task this time was not easy. Everyone is here. Seeing that Rayya has arrived, Tsunade, who is Hokage, has a serious face and directly announced. This time is not an ordinary task, but a war. War. Hearing this, not only Rayya, but Kakashi and the others, their expressions changed suddenly. Since the beginning of the establishment of the ninja realm, which is supreme by force, it has never been less than war. Not counting the wars of the Sengoku era, even in the so-called peace era after the establishment of the 5 major villages, there have been 3 ninja wars. After the 3rd ninja war, Konoha has enjoyed 20 years of peace. Of course, even so, there are some battles such as Nine Tails Runaway and Orochimaru Invasion. At this time, Tsunade announced so solemnly that a war is coming, how could everyone not be surprised? In this battle, Konohagakure and Sunagakure formed an allied force, and the goal is Tanoken Shinobu. Ignoring everyone's horror, Tsunade spoke again and introduced the details directly. 2 years ago, Orochimaru teamed up with Sand Shinobi to launch Konoha's destruction opportunity, causing serious damage to Konoha. On the other hand, Orochimaru also assassinated Sunagakure's leader at the time, 4th Kazekage. Therefore, it has also become Sunagakure's most wanted object. After the war, Konoha and Sand Shinobi, who were hit hard at the same time, had to establish an alliance again in order to deal with the threats of other powers. After these 2 years, the 2 villages have been recuperated and both have recovered their strength. In addition to the previous Chunin exam, Gara uncovered the rebels and Sand Shinobi cleared the hidden dangers. Therefore, it is now time to impose sanctions on Orochimaru, who launched the crime in the past, and Oto Village under his command. Because it involves fighting between country, and between village and village, this is undoubtedly a war. So it's like this. After listening, everyone understood, and at the same time secretly breathed a sigh of relief. Fortunately, it was only a local war against a small country, not a major country that affected the entire ninja world. Moreover, this combination of Konoha and Sand Shinobi should not be a problem to deal with a weak Otonin village. Of course, war is war after all, and all the elite Jonin present are not taken lightly. As a ninja, the most important character is to be vigilant. Go get ready. After speaking, Tsunade waved his hand and officially ordered. Yes, the crowd took their orders and dashed away from the Hokage office. As for the pre-war preparations, in addition to various ninjas, there are subordinates. As Jonin, in this war, each will lead 3 subordinates to act as a team. The original 3rd class, now a Guy team, Captain Might Guy, players Hyuga Neji, Rock Lee, Tenten. The original 8th class, the Red team, the captain is Sunset Red, and the team members Hyuga Hinata, Aburame Shino, Inazukaya. The original 10th class, now the Asuma team, Captain Sarutobi Asuma, team members Nara Shikamaru, Yamanaka Ino, Akamichi Choji. The original 7th class, the current Kakashi team, Captain Hitaki Kakashi, team members Haruno Sakura, Eyes Udon, K's Festival Mengwang. The original 9th class, the current Rayya team, the Captain Takagi Rayya, the team members Miyamoto Tomohisa, Ishihara Coriander, Sarutobi Konohamaru. Among them, the 3rd, 8th, and 10th shifts have no changes in personnel. In the 7th class, because Naruto and Sakura were not there, they temporarily replaced 2 genin who had just graduated from the ninja school this year. In the 9th squad, Moonlight Hayate had other tasks, and the team leader was replaced by Rayya, who also replaced a new genin. In this way, among the 5 teams, in terms of staffing, the Agai team with 2 Jonin and 2 Chunin is the strongest. 1 Jonin and 3 Genin Rayya teams are the weakest. Rayya. After 2 years, finally teaming up with Rayya again, Chihisa and Coriander were full of excitement and joy in their hearts. I don't want to be with him. I want to wait for brother Naruto to come back. On the other side, Konohamaru, pointing at Rayya and shouting, was getting angry with the young master. Looking at the 3 people in front of him, Rayya has no expression on his face, but in his heart is thinking, are you sure this is not a joke? You know, even if the 2 big villages join forces to deal with Otonin, it is war after all. Moreover, the opponent is Orochimaru, who knows what tricks he will have. In this case, Rayya, who was just promoted Jonin, was allowed to be the captain, and he was assigned 3 genin names. Is this a human job? Rayya couldn't help but doubt that Tsunade must still bear his hatred. Compared to Rayya, watching the udon with a runny nose and the cute yellow with 2 broom braids, Kakashi also has a look of love. Speaking of, the 3 of Konohamaru who graduated this year were originally a small team, and Ebisu was in charge of Jonin. I just graduated, and I haven't even done the D-level task. How can I get it into this war? Rayya, the future of my Sarutobi family is left to you. At this moment, Sarutobi Hiruzen stood by the window, looking at the direction of the square, and said silently in his heart. Konohamaru, who just graduated, were arranged for this operation because of Hiruzen's instruction. His purpose is simple, let Konohamaru grow rapidly in this war. Because Konohamaru's parents died early, Hiruzen was so pity for this grandson that he spoiled him too much, making Konohamaru a childish temper. Such Konohamaru, how can he afford the Sarutobi clan in the future? Therefore, Hiruzen arranged Konohamaru into this mission. It is to let him see the cruelty of war and grow rapidly in blood and death. I have to say that Hiruzen's approach is cruel, but the world of ninjas is like this. Of course, Hiruzen wanted to train Konohamaru, not to send him to death. So, he gave Konohamaru to Rayya, his most trusted disciple. Even the 2 companions of Konohamaru, Hiruzen, have been assigned to reliable Kakashi. Go get ready and set off tomorrow. On the square, the team has been allocated. As the captain, Rayya gave an order. This operation is top secret. At the beginning of the mission, the team members will not get any news, they only need to follow the command of the captain. Yes, Joju didn't disagree with the coriander at all, and immediately went back to prepare. Humph, Konohamaru, who was forced to be under Ryuya's hand, gave a soft snort, still unconvinced. In Konohamaru's heart, apart from Grandpa Third Hokage, the person whom he admires most is Naruto. This time such an important action, Naruto is not there, he is already very unhappy. What made him even more unhappy and even angry was that he was assigned to Naruto's number one enemy, Rayya. When Orochimaru invaded, Rayuya and Naruto became Konoha's heroes together. But Rayuya was successfully promoted to Chunin, but Naruto did not. Later, when Sasuke was rescued, Naruto was seriously injured, but Rayuya defeated Junmaro and rescued everyone. The prestige overshadows Naruto. Until recently, the new Chunin exam, Rayuya shined again, and was already Jonin. Recently, people in the village always praise Rayuya, but they seem to have completely forgotten Naruto. As Naruto's hardcore little brother, how can Konohamaru not be angry? And Rayuya, of course, is classified as Naruto's number one enemy. Seduction. The more he thought about it, the more angry he got. Konohamaru clenched his fists and suddenly attacked Rayuya. And his first move was to learn from Naruto's seduction technique. The next moment, Konohamaru turned into a falling beauty. Hee. Konohamaru smiled secretly in his heart. His elder brother invented this ninjutsu, but if he defeated his grandfather and teacher, Rayuya would definitely get caught. Rayuya looked at Konohamaru's seduction technique, looked up and down, suddenly sighed, and then turned and left. How can that be? His seduction technique actually failed, and Konohamaru was stunned for an instant. It's a kid after all. Rayuya, who left, secretly regretted that she was indeed beautiful, but her figure had no content. The understanding of beauty by children and adults is indeed not at the same level. Strengthen the Great Fireball technique. At the same time, 60 days have passed since the last enhancement, and Rayuya once again got the opportunity of unlimited enhancement. There is only one skill left, and there is no choice. Start of unlimited enhancement. Goal, skill Great Fireball technique. Great Fireball technique strengthen +1. Great Fireball technique strengthening +2. Great Fireball technique strengthen +10, power increase. Great Fireball technique strengthening +11. Great Fireball technique strengthen +100, increase the attack distance. Great Fireball technique strengthening +101. Great Fireball technique strengthen +1000, increase the attack range. Great Fireball technique strengthen +1001. The system prompts started to sound one after another. Rayuya looked at it for a while, and then chose to block again. The next night was speechless, and early the next morning, the teams were ready and assembled again. Set off. Following an order, under the leadership of the captain, they left Konoha one after another and proceeded along different routes. From the moment of leaving the village, it shows that the war has already begun. This time the crusade against Otonin village was a joint operation. In order to achieve the effect of a surprise attack, the two hidden villages must act together. Tanokuni, where Otonin village is located, borders the land of fire where Konoha is located, and is located to the north of the land of fire. The Wind Country, where Sand Shinobi is located to the west of Konoha, with two small countries in between. Therefore, the two parties agreed that Sand Shinobi first passed through the country of Sichuan, entered the country of fire, and then went to the northern border of the country of fire. Konoha will leave later, but will meet Sand Shinobi at the northern border on the same date. Once the two sides have completed the alliance, they immediately enter the country of Tan, and launch a surprise attack on Otonin. Follow me. In order to avoid being noticed, Konoha's teams follow different routes after leaving the village. Only the captain knew the route and date of travel. Understand. Facing Ryuya's instructions, Chihisa and Coriander responded immediately. Humph. Konohamaru snorted slightly, but his face was unconvinced. This mission is very dangerous. Rayuya glanced at Konohamaru, and said that it was necessary to explain some things first. If not, how dangerous is it? Before Rayuya could finish speaking, Konohamaru interrupted directly and asked in disapproval. Will die. Ryuya's face sank, no further explanation, and he said two words in a deep voice. Meeting. Hearing this, Konohamaru, who was still smug just now, turned pale and his expression was a little flustered. After all, he was only 12 or 13 years old and had just graduated from ninja school. In contrast, Juju, even the cowardly Coriander, had no reaction on his face. Although it was only Jonin, he had graduated for 2 years, had done many tasks, and faced death more than once. And most importantly, they absolutely trust Rayya and believe that as long as Rayya is there, they will not be killed. Next, in accordance with the established time and route, the Rayya team continued to advance. It was a long time in a flash, and everything went well. This enhancement is over. In the evening, the system reminded me that the Great Fireball technique had been strengthened. Rest. In order to take care of the 3 Jonin in Rayya team, their route is the shortest and the time is the most abundant. When it was time for dinner, Rayya gave the order, then stopped and turned on the system while taking out the dry food to eat. 1,000 meters in diameter. As soon as he saw one point, Rayya was taken aback for an instant, and a mouthful of dry food that had not been swallowed was directly stuck in his throat. Choking, Rayya turned Byakugan straight and drank a few sips of water before finally rushing down. Is this still Great Fireball? At the same time, looking at the skill introduction, Rayya is still full of shock. After 86,400 times of strengthening, the power of the Great Fireball technique has greatly increased. The main performance is volume. The original fireball with a diameter of 10 meters has now become a behemoth with a diameter of 1 kilometer. Not only that, after the Great Fireball is impacted, it will explode. The raging flames and the gust of wind will cover a radius of 10,000 meters, which is a range of 10 kilometers. Of course, with such a huge power, the release distance of the Great Fireball has also been greatly improved, and the limit can reach 100 kilometers. Just imagine, if there is no such release distance and a giant Great Fireball is sprayed on the feet, it will not deal with the enemy but commit suicide. This is simply a nuclear fireball. It wasn't until a long time before Rayya came back to his senses, the power was too terrifying. Immediately afterwards, Rayya smiled bitterly again. The system was so stubborn that he rubbed such a great fireball, but there was no downsized version. In other words, as long as you use the Great Fireball technique, you can only release this big guy. Just imagine, this kind of powerful nuclear fireball, does Rayya dare to throw it casually? Even if it does not accidentally injure the friendly army, it is not good to hit the flowers and plants. In this way, the power is indeed great, but it seems a bit too great. Under normal circumstances, Rayya didn't dare to use it at all. This is not equivalent to the Great Fireball technique that he took 2 or 3 years to develop, and it just clicked. Thinking of this, Rayya wanted to cry without tears, which was the most speechless reinforcement. Whispering sound. Seeing Rayya sitting there, I was happy for a while and sighed, especially just now, when I was choked by dry food and turned Byakugan straight. Konohamaru snorted. If it weren't for those 2 sips of water, Rayya would probably be the first Jonin to choke to death with dry food in history, and he couldn't help but become more disdainful. What is going to die? What kind of high-level tasks might be performed by a captain who is so awkward? I just said I would die, so I must have deliberately frightened him. Thinking that he was really frightened, and didn't dare to say anything for a long time, Konohamaru became more annoyed. I'm Konohamaru, I won't be scared by you. Annoyed, Konohamaru screamed and rushed directly to Rayya. Only with a fist can his shame be washed away. Konohamaru took the initiative to attack Rayya. Chihisa and Cilantro, who were quietly eating dry food next to him, snorted, only 2 terms lower. Did you forget the name of the Great Demon King back then? As for Konohamaru, who rushed up, Rayya didn't raise his head either, and was still studying the system there. At this moment, with a soft sound, 2 figures suddenly sprang out from the grass beside them, holding sharp kunai in their hands, rushing towards Konohamaru, one left and the other right. This is. The 2 men wear forehead protector, obviously Otonin's forehead protector. Seeing this scene, Juju and Coriander instantly changed their faces. However, Konohamaru is too far away, and their ability is too late to rescue. How come? At this time, Konohamaru was completely frightened in the face of 2 Otonin who was full of murderous intent. He couldn't understand why there was Otonin here, and suddenly jumped out to kill him. In fact, even if Konohamaru was not frightened, with his strength, he couldn't deal with the sneak attacks and pincer attacks of these two Otoninos. The two Otoninosaurs were very fast, and the next moment was already near. They were about to pierce Konohamaru into Konohamaru's body. Whoosh! At this critical moment, with a soft sound, a figure flashed. It was Rayya. Immediately afterwards, Ryuya's forearm slammed heavily at the two Otonin. In the past 2 years, under the guidance of Hiruzen, Rayya has not only practiced the 4 elephant seals with all his strength, but also has basic ninja skills such as physique, shuriken, and various applications of chakra. While practicing the seal of the 4 elephants, Ryuya's foundation is already very solid. If not, how could he be promoted to Jonin? Bang bang. With 2 muffled noises, the 2 Toninos who were hit in the abdomen by Ryuya spouted blood from their mouths and noses, and then passed out. Come out. Regardless of the frightened Konohamaru, throwing the 2 Otonin aside, Rayuya turned to the bush and said lightly. Someone. Having recovered, Tomohisa and Coriander who ran to Ryuya's side, and Konohamaru who hid behind Rayuya, the 3 of them couldn't help but look in the direction that Rayuya indicated. Ooh, ooh. The bush shook slightly, but no one came out, but a strange flute sound came. Flute. Juju and the others were startled again, and just when they were wondering, the surrounding trees suddenly began to twist, and then turned into giant pythons, crawling towards them with scarlet letters. The 3 of them were startled and wanted to escape, but suddenly they found that their bodies did not obey their orders and could not move at all. In the next moment, the giant python has wrapped around their bodies. And under the entanglement of immense power, the 3 people who were suffocated instantly saw in horror that their bodies were decayed and their flesh and blood were collapsing. Illusion. At this time, facing the same situation, Rayuya didn't panic at all, but a sneer was raised at the corner of his mouth. Wow! At the next moment, the python that was originally twisting Rayuya loosened instantly. What happened? Immediately afterwards, the figure that was originally observed in stealth suddenly appeared. Just as this figure was puzzled, the giant pythons had already crawled towards her. Only then did she realize that she couldn't move anymore. The next moment, being entangled by a giant python, his body quickly decayed and collapsed under the tremendous strength. What happened? Suddenly, Chihisa, Coriander, and Konohamaru recovered. His back was soaked in cold sweat, and looking at the same woods around him, he couldn't help feeling lingering. The illusion has failed. Tayuya was hit by his own illusion, so he was not simply cracked, but rebounded. The intelligence is wrong. Illusion is not only his weakness, but his strength. He is stronger again. At this time, the voice of speech sounded, and Juju and the others only saw it. Not far in front of them, there were 5 people standing. Yes, just now Rayuya said, come out, and someone is in ambush. 4 men and 1 woman, all wearing forehead protector. There was a flute beside the woman's lips, and it was obvious that the woman played the weird flute just now. But a closer look reveals that the woman is like a clay sculpture, standing motionless. And her dark gray eyes didn't have the slightest expression, and it was obvious that she had lost consciousness. Rayuya. Just now they were hit by the illusion. Chihisa and the others, who had completely understood, turned to look at Rayuya next to them, and then couldn't help but startled. Rayuya looked at the 5 Otonin in front of him with a very serious expression. It turned out to be you. After a while, Rayuya spoke, with a hint of coldness in his voice. The sound of the flute did contain illusion. If it were 2 years ago, Rayuya might have explained it. But now he, after strengthening his brain, acquires the ability of illusory solely. No matter who displays the illusion, it will be controlled by him. With this ability, Rayuya directly countered the opponent. At the same time, seeing the performer in the illusion, Rayuya was an accident. At this time the illusion was unlocked, and seeing the 5 people in front of him, he couldn't help verifying his guess. The enemy who struck was the 5 Otonin people led by Junmaro. Impure World Reincarnation. In the battle for Sasuke, all 5 of Otonin had been killed, and Rayuya was a participant. There is absolutely nothing wrong with this. At this time, he appeared in front of him again. Besides the technique of Impure World Reincarnation, what explanation was there? The appearance of the 5 people like clay sculptures and the gray-black whites of the eyes also illustrate this point. It's really an honor to be Master First Hokage. It seems that the plan has been leaked. At the same time, Konoha's other teams also encountered interception attacks. In addition to ordinary Otonin, it also includes masters of impure world reincarnation. What is different from the 5 people of Otoninyo is that these masters, including first generation and second Hokage, have no will of their own. They just retain the walking corpses who are almost alive when they are alive. All the teams were attacked at the same time. Obviously, Otonin Village had already known this battle plan. In fact, Orochimaru, who is good at bewitching people's hearts, has spies in various villages and various positions. Although Otonin Village is small in scale, the espionage system headed by Do is no weaker than the 5 hidden villages. Fighting head-on. Facing the joint raid of the 2 hidden villages, after receiving information, Orochimaru did not evade and hide, and instead sent someone to intercept it. This shows that Orochimaru is going to compete head-on with Sand Shinobi and Konoha. A small village and a mere daring to challenge the coalition forces of the 2 hidden villages. I have to say that Orochimaru is indeed crazy. Trouble now. Although Orochimaru is crazy, he is not stupid. The reason why he has this confidence is because of impure world reincarnation. Looking at the 5 Otonin people in front of him, Rayya sighed secretly. Speaking of it, he actually helped Orochimaru. 2 years ago, Orochimaru invaded Konoha and reincarnated first generation, second Hokage, and third Hokage in the 4 purple flame formations. But at that time, Orochimaru was still needed to control it, and it was impossible to join the siege of third Hokage. But now, Orochimaru is nowhere to be seen. That is to say, Orochimaru's impure world reincarnation has become more mature. You only need to give instructions, and the reincarnated can execute them without having to manipulate them. This level is almost the same as in the original book, during the 4th Ninja World War. Obviously, during these 2 years, Rayya and Naruto have been practicing hard, while Orochimaru's strength has also improved. In the original plot, Orochimaru, whose hands were sealed by 3rd generation, could no longer use ninjutsu, and his strength remained almost unchanged after 2 years. In this world, Rayya slashed the 4 purple flame formations and saved 3rd Hokage, but at the same time, Orochimaru's hands were also saved. So, if Orochimaru can achieve what it is today, Rayya actually helped him. Have no idea. It's really uncomfortable to create a strong opponent with his own hands. But if Rayya is given another chance to choose, he will do it again. Because after he saved 3rd generation, he also got a lot of benefits. Retired from Hokage's personal guidance, Sarutobi's secret medicine corrects meridians. Without these, Rayya could not have the current strength. In the past, Ryuya's cut, 3rd generation, Orochimaru, and Rayya all benefited from it. It is a win-win for 3. However, while Rayya and the others won 3 wins, one person was miserably miserable, and that was Sasuke. After all, Sasuke, 2 years later, may not be able to kill Orochimaru with sound hands. If he can't get rid of it, he might become a container for Orochimaru. I'm sorry, Urzu. Thinking of this, Rayuya smiled and could only apologize. Kill him. At this moment, with a soft drink from Junmaro, the 4 people on the opposite side rushed up directly. Chapter 51. This operation is a battle to unite Sand Shinobi against Otonin Village. The current action has been exposed, and it is about to fight the impure world reincarnation 5 people. You protect yourself. Briefly, with a few quick explanations, Rayuya shook his figure and directly greeted Junmaro and others. War. Although there are not many words from Rayuya, the content is too shocking. It wasn't until Rayuya had already fought the enemy that Chihisa and the others came back to their senses. Although they have never experienced it before, they also understand how cruel these 2 words are from the history told by the teacher. It's really going to die. At this time, Konohamaru couldn't help but remember that Rayuya said at the beginning, will die. Since it is a war, of course people will die. In fact, if it wasn't for Rayuya to make a timely move, he would have died under Otoninho's suffering. Thinking of passing by with death, Konohamaru's heart was full of horror, and he couldn't help his legs softening and slumped directly on the ground. Upon seeing this, Tomohisa and Vanilla changed positions immediately, protecting Konohamaru one after another. Although they can't understand the temper of Konohamaru's elders, as a team, they are partners who rely on each other. You guys, Seeing Tomohisa and Coriander acting like instincts, Konohamaru couldn't help being moved, and then full of shame. At the beginning, he laughed at Chihisa and the others. It was Jonin after graduation so long. I even boasted how brave I would be if I met an enemy. Now, he doesn't even have the courage to stand up, but Chihisa and Coriander are protecting him regardless of previous complaints. Just as he was about to thank him, Konohamaru suddenly realized that the two of them did not look at him. Without blinking, he stared at the front nervously. Yes, Rayya is already fighting the enemy. This is... Konohamaru, who had recovered his senses, also looked over quickly. Who knows, the next scene instantly scared him. Rayya flashed and appeared behind an enemy, then quickly drew his sword and slashed, directly splitting the enemy in half. But before Konohamaru and the others were happy, their bodies healed instantly. There was no injury at all, and he rushed towards Rayya again with an ugly face. Impure world reincarnation. In horror, what Rayya said just now suddenly sounded. The opponent is the Otonin 5 people, who were brought out by impure world reincarnation. As Jonin, they didn't know anything about this S-level forbidden technique. But in the defense battle 2 years ago, Orochimaru had reincarnated first generation and second Hokage, so this technique was widely known in Konoha. How to do? It was originally one enemy 4, not to mention the other party is still immortal. No, I want to fight too. I couldn't help but worry that Rayya. Konohamaru had courage in an instant, and suddenly felt that his legs were not soft anymore, so he stood up and went up to help. The other party is 4 people, and they are also 4 people, at least they won't suffer in terms of numbers. Think of what Rayya said. But at this moment, Chihisa suddenly reached out to stop Konohamaru. Rayya, he said. Konohamaru was taken aback, then remembered Ryuya's last words, let them protect themselves instead of participating in the war. But, although he understood that he had to obey the captain's orders, Konohamaru couldn't help being anxious. The opponent was the 5 members of Otonin from Impure World Reincarnation, and Rayya was only one. Don't worry. At this time, as a wise general, Juju smiled with everything under control, and said something meaningful. He is Rayya. He is Rayya. Konohamaru was stunned, recalling these words repeatedly, and couldn't help looking at the court with a little loss. Rayya didn't pay attention to Konohamaru's reaction and didn't care. To paraphrase Chihisa's words, the opponent is a crowd of Otonin 5 people. Even if it was Rayya, even if he came up, Tuya was abolished. Faced with the remaining 4 people, he had to concentrate and did not dare to be distracted. Leaf Hurricane. Seizing an opportunity, Rayya flew a kick at Junmaro. Boom. But it is a pity that Junmaro had long been on guard. After all, he died under Ryuya's kicking skills. Although Rayya had the right time, in the end he only slapped Junmaro slightly, and with a muffled noise, he kicked him half of his body to pieces. If it is an ordinary person, it is already dead at this time, but the opponent is the immortal body of Impure World Reincarnation. Your legs are heavier. After the body reunited, Junmaro looked at Rayya with a serious expression. But as Impure World Reincarnation, he didn't have much fear in his eyes. It's really troublesome. It was a waste of energy, Rayya sighed secretly. The trickiest thing right now is not the other 4, nor the others' immortality. But they know a lot of information about Rayya, and are extremely familiar with his abilities. Therefore, whether it is body replacement technique, leaf hurricane, or slashing, even the sealing technique that Rayya has just practiced, the Otonin 5 people are all on guard. Several consecutive attacks failed, and Rayya wished to throw a nuclear fireball directly. But Chihisa and the others are still on the sidelines, obviously impossible. Today, I will definitely take you to the Pure Land. Like a bone gangrene, the 4 clung to Rayya, and while attacking fiercely, Junmaro said with confidence. In his opinion, having mastered Ryuya's abilities, coupled with their immortality, Ryuya's skills are no longer a threat to them. Although they couldn't hurt Rayya for a while. But as long as the stalemate continues, they will eventually win. After all, as a living person, Rayya is always tired and chakra is always exhausted. In fact, the battle lasted for a while. Junmaro was keenly aware that Ryuya's breathing had obviously increased a lot. Most importantly, Rayya uses ninjutsu more and less frequently. Is there no chakra anymore? Junmaro smiled. From his point of view, Ryuya's ninjutsu is indeed powerful, but because of this, it is bound to consume chakra extremely. At this time, Rayya, chakra should have little left. The four exchanged glances, and then clung to Rayya more fiercely. In desperation, Rayya performed the body replacement technique twice again. But after these 2 times, Rayya only used physique to entangle him, and he didn't even use his sword to slash. The four exchanged glances again, and the time had come. Cobweb binding technique. The first is Gatong Maru. With a loud shout, he opened a huge spider web and directly covered Rayya. Rayya had been prepared for a long time, and jumped to the side to dodge. Earth and land return. At this moment, Jirobo's attack immediately followed. A large stone slab broke, and countless rubble shot at Rayya. Rayya frowned and could only flash away again. But because he was too hasty, his figure shook a little, and his center of gravity was obviously unstable. It's this time. At the right time, Junmaro shouted loudly, and approached Sakanyu one after another, and attacked Rayuya at the same time. Puff! Although Rayuya dodged the multiple punches from Sakanuken, in the end, he couldn't avoid the attack of Junmaro. With a muffled noise, Junmaro's bone blade pierced his chest. Ha ha! After seeing it, Gaidumaru roared in excitement and pounced on Rayuya with Jirobo. I also want to taste the thrill of passing my fist through Ryuya's body. Rayuya. And seeing this scene, Chihisa, Coriander, and Konohamaru all changed their faces. After an exclamation, Rayuya ignored Ryuya's explanation, so he rushed forward. I said, I will take you to the Pure Land. Feeling clearly that the bone blade pierced Ryuya's heart, Junmaro took a deep breath, and his heart was filled with joy. Is it? At this moment, Rayuya, who should have been killed, suddenly raised his head, with a chuckle at the corner of his mouth. Not good. Junmaro's face changed suddenly, and then he was about to evade. Toad oil bomb. But unfortunately, it was too late. Rayuya yelled, and sprayed a lot of toad oil from his mouth. Wow! Whether it was Junmaro, Sakanyukin, or Gaidumaru and Jirofeng who just rushed up, they were all splashed with his toad oil in an instant. What the hell is this? Gatong Maru wanted to shake off the oil, but he soon discovered that the oil was extremely viscous. Not only could it not shake off, but it stuck him firmly to the ground. It was Guido Maru who couldn't help but, even the powerful Jirobo, who could be split up, couldn't get rid of it at all. Click, click. Only Junmaro quickly retreated a layer of exoskeleton, like a golden cicada escaping his shell, and then jumped out. Several more vertical leaps, and a certain distance from Rayuya. It's worthy of bones and veins. Rayuya had anticipated Junmaro's emergence a long time ago. His goal was originally just the 3 of Onitomaru. I pressed the wound on my chest with my hand. Although it hurts a bit, with the powerful resilience of the tailed beast heart, it was no problem. It seems that your intelligence work is not enough. Looking at Junmaro with a vigilant face, Rayuya smiled and said. Impure World Reincarnations 5 members of Odonin, coupled with a lot of information about Rayuya, are really difficult to get around. Rayuya can't wait to throw a nuclear fireball directly. Scrolling through the list of skills, there is no technique that Odonin knows about. Apart from the Great Fireball, there should only be toad oil bombs. Although this ninjutsu was mastered earlier than Leaf Hurricane, because toad oil had to be stored in advance, it was never revealed to outsiders except once used against Conan. Of course, Orochimaru, a traitor to Akatsuki, could not get information from Conan. Therefore, Rayuya deliberately pretended that chakra was exhausted and gave Junmaro such a chance to kill him. The purpose is to lower their vigilance and facilitate fuel injection. In fact, Rayuya, who has the heart of the tail beast, has a huge amount of chakra, and the powerful ninjutsu he uses are actually low-level ninjutsu, and it does not consume much chakra at all. Sure enough, this trick worked. The toad oil that was strengthened by the system was extremely viscous, and instantly bound the 3 of Gatongwan. For them of Impure World Reincarnation, this move is much more effective than the powerful 10,000-ton whirlwind and the slashing sword. It's your turn. In this way, 4 of the 5 members of Odonin had been abolished, and only Junmaro remained. Rayuya let out a soft drink and rushed forward with a flash. Master Orochimaru, I will never lose again. In the face of the fierce Rayuya, Junmaro raised his head and roared, stretched out countless bone blades, and directly greeted him. Great, I knew it. At this time, Chihisa and the others, who had not had time to rush up, saw that Rayya was okay, and they couldn't help but feel excited. He is Rayya. Seeing Rayya who beat Junmaro fiercely, Konohamaru stood blankly on the spot, and couldn't help but think of the second half of Chihisa's words just now. He is Rayya, who can be his opponent? Boom. Soon, after several consecutive shifts, Rayya seized the gap and kicked Junmaro to pieces with a muffled noise. Haha, you can't kill me. You can't kill me. But shortly afterwards, Junmaro's body gathered again, and he raised his hair and laughed wildly in triumph. No matter how strong you are, facing the immortality that Master Orochimaru bestows on me, you can still do. Could it be that you have lost your mind? Ryuya's face is stern, and her hands quickly form a seal. Si hai wei mao shu zi yu wu si. This is, seeing Ryuya's not seal, Junmaro's face changed suddenly, revealing a hint of horror. But at this time, his body hadn't fully recovered, and he couldn't move away at all. Seal. After finishing the seal, Rayya shouted, and the yin and yang of both hands turned into the 4 elephants, and the 4 elephants were sealed. Snapped. Hum. As Rayya put his hands on Junmaro's body, countless black threads poured out from his palms, instantly covering Junmaro's whole body, like a black cocoon, completely wrapping Junmaro. Orochimaru is big. In panic, Junmaro roared feverishly. But unfortunately, before he finished speaking, his whole body was turned into a clay sculpture. Seeing this scene, the 3 people of Gatongwan, who were bound by toad oil, showed horrified expressions on their faces. At the same time, I couldn't help struggling harder. But the harder they were, the more toad oil would stick, and the more they would be unable to move. No. Seeing Rayuya approaching them, they suddenly heard a new piece of information that Yakushi Kabuto told them. The substitute Rayuya in the Chunin exam is now the Seal Ninja Takagi Rayuya. Seal, 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 seal. Immediately afterwards, Rayuya cast the seals of the 4 elephants one after another, sealing the 3 people of Onizumaru who were stuck together, as well as the Tayuya who was still in his illusion. 1. Great. The 5 people of Otonin had been sealed by Rayuya, and Tomohisa and the others couldn't help cheering excitedly. What do these people do? Happily ran to Rayuya, kicked Junmaro who was sealed on the ground, and Chihisa asked. If you just leave it like this, it will be troublesome to unlock the seal if it is found by Otoninu. But if Konoha is brought back, such 5 corpses is really heavy. Just put it here. Rayuya stretched and said lightly. No one can unlock my seal. Okay. Hearing this, Chihisa and Coriander nodded their heads, full of confidence. Quote. Seeing this scene, Konohamaru couldn't help but lose consciousness. Looking at Rayuya again, his eyes couldn't help being filled with awe. Next. At this moment, Rayuya suddenly looked serious and said in a deep voice. The mission continues. The battle plan changes. Rayuya looked serious and looked at the 3 people in front of him. Sneak in instead of break in. Yes, including Konohamaru, the 3 responded directly without any disagreement. Whoosh, whoosh whoosh. Immediately afterwards, under the leadership of Rayuya, the 4 moved forward at the fastest speed and went straight to the border of the country of fire and the country of Tien. What? At the same time, Tsunade stood up suddenly in Konoha Hokage's office. Just got the news that the Asuma team was attacked by Otonin and had to abandon the mission and retreat back to Konoha. And then, as if a certain hole was opened, news of other teams being intercepted came one after another. In less than half a day, Konoha and Sand Shinobi's teams almost all heard news. Obviously, the plan this time has been leaked in advance. Otonin village is just a small village, and it cannot be compared with Konoha and Sand Shinobi at all. Under normal circumstances, Orochimaru who received the news should retreat immediately, but he did not. Instead, he sent a large number of troops directly across the border to intercept the various teams in the country of fire. Orochimaru's arrogance made Tsunade extremely angry. But what was even more unexpected was that all the teams that were intercepted were lost to retreat. In other words, a mere Yinin village actually stopped the coalition forces in the 2 hidden villages. Orochimaru. Tsunade frowned. The reason for this was not that her subordinates were too weak, but that the enemy was too strong. According to intelligence, nearly half of the Otonin who participated in the interception have curse seals. Transformed into a monster through the curse seal, the strength is comparable to Jonin. As far as Tsunade knows, although the effect of curse seal amplification is terrifying, it is also too overbearing for most people to bear. How did Orochimaru make the curse-marked monsters in batches in a short time? After thinking about it, I am afraid that some kind of excessive means was used, such as overdraft of life. In addition to the curse monsters, there are also a large number of impure world reincarnation dead in Otonin. Since being selected by Orochimaru, he must have been a powerful ninja during his lifetime. At this time, coupled with the immortal body, it becomes more and more difficult. As a result, the various squads of the coalition forces were frustrated one after another. In order to avoid the sacrifice of their companions, they had to abandon their mission and withdraw Konoha. Thank you, everyone. The next morning, Tsunade came to the office, saw the captains who had returned, and sighed. This time, the faces of Sand Shinobi and Konoha are completely wiped out. In addition to Konoha Shinobi, various teams of Sand Shinobi also returned to Konoha after being blocked. On Sand Shinobi's side, Baki, who was in charge of this mission, said straightforwardly. This time Konoha and Sand Shinobi have joined forces, and it can be said to be a great start. As a result, he was beaten back by Otonin without even crossing the borders of the country of Tien. It is not difficult to predict that this matter will soon spread among countries. But by then, Konoha and Sand Shinobi will completely become a laughing stock. Not only that, the Ninja Village, as the country's force, this failure has also discredited the country of fire and the country of wind. The big names of the two countries will certainly be held accountable. It's good to be back. Tsunade also understood this, but the enemy's strength was beyond their expectations, and there was no way to fail the mission. Fortunately, they did not sacrifice, and everyone has returned to Konoha safely. Master Naruto. At this moment, Shizune, who was standing next to him and who had been working as a secret technique, suddenly said something. One more team hasn't come back. What? Tsunade's expression changed instantly, and he swept toward everyone. Kakashi, Guy, Asuma, Red, and Sand Shinobi's Jonin, then frowned. It's Rayya. Yes it is. Shizune nodded, then said worriedly. The Rayya team has not returned, and so far, no news has been returned. I'm afraid they have all died. Baki's face was solemn, and he said something. As the person in charge of Sand Shinobi, Baki has the right to know Konoha's personnel arrangements. Upon learning of a new Jonin, he led 3 Genins to form a team. Baki couldn't help but snorted, which stupid fool made this stupid arrangement. There is no doubt that among Konoha's teams, the Rayya team is the weakest. There is no news yet, and the possibility of being wiped out by Otonin is extremely high. After all, those curse monsters and the dead of impure world reincarnation are not easy to deal with. There is another possibility. At this time, Tsunade spoke in a low tone. The Rayya team has defeated the enemy and is continuing its mission. This is impossible. Send Nin Ying immediately. Without waiting for Baki to say more, Tsunade directly ordered. Yes, Shizune took the order and immediately executed it. As a ninja, in addition to his own practice, he also uses external forces. In addition to the commonly used ninjas and various drugs, there are also ninja beasts. For example, Kakashi, the ninja dog domesticated by Inuzuka, and Tsunade's ninja dolphin. Konoha Village has no shortage of experts in beast taming, and has specially cultivated a group of ninja eagles. In addition to sending letters and information remotely, you can also connect their eyesight through ninjutsu to achieve the purpose of searching. Ninja is fast, and immediately after releasing it, he searched along the route of Rayya team. Start. After Tsunade was unprinted, he gave a soft drink. The crystal ball on the table has been visually connected to Ninying, presenting the scene that Ninying sees. At this time, in the office, whether it was Tsunade or Baki, or the elites of the 2 villages, Jonin, all stared nervously at the crystal ball. What is that? After about an hour, Ninja Eagle passed through a jungle and suddenly saw a few humanoid objects in the depths of the jungle. Tsunade hurriedly performed ninjutsu, and controlled the ninja to fly closer to investigate. People. When the distance got closer, it turned out to be 5 people. But they were bound by black stripes and turned into clay sculptures. And in the middle of all the stripes, there is the word, Feng. Seal. All Jonin at the scene recognized it at a glance. This was a kind of sealing technique. It looks like the seal of the 4 elephants, but can the seal of the 4 elephants be used like this? Sound Shinobi. Although it is entangled with black thread, you can see from the gap, the other side's forehead protector. It's impure world reincarnation. At this moment, Tsunade confirmed. These are not ordinary Otonin, they are all people of impure world reincarnation. Could it be that? Baki couldn't help changing his face, his eyes filled with disbelief. Not bad. Tsunade was shocked and said excitedly. Rayya sealed them. Seal. Baki was startled, and then he remembered that Takagi Rayya had sealed the name of a ninja. And this name came from their Sunegakur. Didn't Rayya die, but defeated his opponent? Up to this point, Baki was still a little unbelievable. After all, Otonin's hardship had been reported to him by his subordinates. At this time, shinobi continued to fly forward along the route of Rayya team. As they passed through everywhere, gradually, the expressions on the faces of everyone present became more and more horrified. I saw Otonin's corpses everywhere, as well as people from impure world reincarnation who were sealed off along the way. How can that be? In Otonin village, Orochimaru, who had received the news, had a hideous face and lion majesty pupils that were extremely cold. Knowing that Konoha and Sand Shinobi had joined forces to conquer Otonin village, Orochimaru was not afraid, but was full of excitement. In the past 2 years, his impure world reincarnation technique has become more and more diligent, so that while wiping out the will of the reincarnation, he can act according to his orders without him being manipulated by the side. In addition, he also developed a method for ordinary people to obtain the power of the curse. Although once the curse seal is planted, it can only live for 3 days. With these 2 methods, Orochimaru not only wants to preserve Tonin Ninja Village, but also to make Konoha and Sand Shinobi completely face off. Everything was planned, but Ryuya's strength gradually made the situation out of his control. It was also Rayya who first cut Gara to make it out of control, then cut off the 4 purple flame formations to rescue 3rd Hokage, making Orochimaru's meticulously planned Konoha destruction plan, and ultimately fell short. Knowing that Rayya is also in this action, the excited Orochimaru prepared an extra gift for him, that is, the 5 members of Otonin of Impure World Reincarnation. However, it never expected that the 5 people of Otoninyo, who possessed the immortal body, would lose to Rayya again and be completely sealed. While Orochimaru was angry, he sent out other teams that had completed the mission one after another to intercept and kill Rayya. Up to now, 7 teams have been sent, and they have all been annihilated by Rayya. And now Rayya is still rushing towards Otonin village. Takagi Rayya. Out of anger, Orochimaru suddenly sneered at the corner of his mouth and turned to Yakushi Kabuto next to him. The team responsible for the interception, have they all returned? Yes, all have returned to the village. Get them all out and kill Takagi Rayya. Yes. He pushed his glasses around, then turned and left. Found it. At the same time, in the Konoha Naruto office, through the perspective of Shinobu, Rayya and the others finally appeared in the crystal ball. Everyone was shocked. The Rayya team did not sacrifice, and they defeated one strong enemy one after another, and they are still continuing to implement the plan. Here it is. At this time, everyone suddenly discovered that Rayya and the others had reached the border of the country of fire and the country of Tien, and it was also the location where Konoha and Sand Shinobi had previously agreed to join forces. Whoosh, whoosh whoosh. In the next moment, under the leadership of Rayya, the team crossed the border directly and entered the country of Tien without any stagnation. Seeing this scene, everyone frowned. The Rayya team is still executing orders, but the other teams have already withdrawn to Konoha. In other words, the current Rayya team has entered the enemy country alone. Don't he know? Ryuya's strength deeply shocked Baki. But there is only one team left, it is too dangerous to enter the enemy country like this. At the same time, I couldn't help wondering, didn't Rayya know that the other teams had already withdrawn? No, he knows. At this moment, Tsunade spoke with a solemn expression. Everyone thought about it a little, and then figured it out in an instant. Yes, Rayya knows. From the corpses along the way, it can be seen that Rayya team suffered multiple interception attacks. According to the opponent's strength, he should be able to calculate that other teams are difficult to resist and will choose to retreat. Moreover, after arriving at the predetermined location, the the Rayya team did not stop and waited for the other teams to come and meet, but instead rushed directly into the country of Tien. It shows that they know in their hearts that no other teams will come to meet. Too nonsense. Thinking about this, Baki snorted angrily. Does Rayya want to rely on their team, or more accurately, on his own? After all, the other 3 genins can't help at all, so he wants to destroy the sound of Shinin Village. How can this be possible for one person against the country? Now, I'm giving orders in the name of Hokage. At this moment, Tsunade suddenly spoke, his expression extremely serious. All teams, set off immediately and go to support Rayya team. Yes, Kakashi, Guy, Asuma, Red, etc., all Konoha captains responded to their orders, and then flashed out of the office in an instant, summoning the team members to support. Master Naruto, Baki next to him said very angrily. Although we are not reconciled, we have to admit that the opponent is strong. It is very irresponsible to send out the team that has finally retired completely. All right, Tsunade let out a cold drink, and interrupted Baki's words directly. The current Rayya team is our only hope. Even at all costs, help him break into Oto Village. You, Master Baki. At this time, the Jonin captains of Sand Shinobi couldn't help asking. What should we do? Does it still need me to say it? Baki's face was serious, and he reprimanded. In this operation, Hokage is the supreme commander in command. Understood. Upon hearing this, Sand Shinobi couldn't help but smiled and said firmly. Let's execute the orders of Master Naruto. In fact, everyone was unwilling to be beaten back by Otoninu. When seeing Ryuya's team, fighting and intercepting one after another, they had already entered the enemy country, and everyone's blood was boiling. As Naruto said, the current Rayya team is their only hope, so at all costs, we must help them reach Oto Village. Immediately afterwards, all the Sand Shinobi Jonin team leaders also immediately left the office and reassembled their subordinates to assist Rayya. I hope he will not disappoint all of us. Looking at the Rayya team in the crystal ball, Baki said lightly. After all, the face of the 2 hidden villages, as well as the 2 great nations of the country of fire and the country of wind, depends on Rayya. Tread, Tatata. At this time, the Rayya team, who had entered Tanokuni, quickly approached Oto Village with the sound of rapid footsteps. Going deep alone, Rayya certainly knows where they are now. But it is precisely because of this that he has no possibility of turning back. Orochimaru's growth has exceeded his expectations. If you don't inflict severe damage right now, with Oto Village's growth rate, it will soon become a formidable enemy. At that time, Konoha Destruction Project 2.0 will definitely be launched immediately. By then, Konoha might be really dangerous. Stop. Going forward without stopping, already deep into the country of Tien, Rayuya gave a soft drink and stopped suddenly. It has not been intercepted for most of the day, and the situation is a bit wrong. Rayuya frowned, the radar ear power turned on. Here, Rayuya gave a soft drink and suddenly changed the direction of travel. The 3 of them did not hesitate and followed directly. Not only Chihisa and Coriander, but also Konohamaru, who was hostile to Rayuya, are now bowing their heads after a series of battles along the way. Although he didn't want to believe it, Konohamaru had to admit that in terms of strength, Rayuya might indeed be better than Naruto. For Rayuya's words are like imperial decree, but this is already the 5th time to change direction. Could it be that what happened, or what is going to happen? Here, half an hour later, Rayuya gave another soft drink and changed direction again. JoJo's trio couldn't help but feel a little worried as they changed directions more frequently. It seems to be targeted. At this moment, Rayuya, who was rushing, listened to the sound with his radar ears to endure his movement, and he was sure of it in his heart. After entering Tanokuni, there was no interception for a long time, which aroused Rayuya's vigilance. He solved several Otonin squads one after another, and Orochimaru, who suffered one after another, could not save Grandpa like this, and send them one by one. I haven't encountered an interception for so long, and it's probably a gathering of people. Therefore, Rayuya immediately used radar ears to investigate, as he expected. Including a large number of cursed monsters, and impure world reincarnation, there are nearly 100 Otonin. Even though Rayuya is strong, I am afraid he is not an opponent. Most importantly, there are the 3 of Chihisa. If besieged by nearly 100 people, Rayya will find it difficult to take care of them. Therefore, only to avoid its edge, relying on the radar ears to control the enemy's movements, Rayya evaded interception in time as he approached Oto Village. But unfortunately, the opponent apparently also has a scout-type ninja, and I don't know what secret technique was used, and has locked Rayya's position. No matter how Rayya changes his route, the other party will know and then make adjustments. No solution anymore. After being entangled for nearly a day, the sun has already set. Although Rayya tried to find a gap, Otonin was too numerous to close the encirclement in the end. Rest. With the opponent's arrangement, it was too late to break through. Instead of doing this, it's better to stop and wait for work. In fact, after running like this, Chihisa and the others, as Jonin, are both physically exhausted and chakra exhausted. Wait later, there will be a near-famous Baiyin attack. While the three of them were resting, Rayya confessed. What you have to do is try to avoid fighting with them and protect yourself. Nearly 100. Hearing this number, all three of them changed their faces. But then he didn't say much, nodded heavily, and recovered his strength as quickly as possible. Although the enemy is strong, they believe that Rayya will definitely protect them. 10 minutes. Rayya calculated it in his mind, 10 minutes should be enough. As long as they can hold on for 10 minutes, they are safe. The question now is how to persist for 10 minutes. Whoosh whoosh. After a while, as Rayya said, a large number of Otonin suddenly appeared around them, surrounding them. Quote. Tonight is the full moon. With the moonlight, you can basically see the face of the other person. When seeing the cursed monsters one by one, and the impure world reincarnation including first generation and second generation, the three of Juju swallowed their saliva and couldn't restrain their nervousness. Hey, finally stopped, and with a grinning sneer, these Otobuki were about to rush forward. Multiple shadow clone techniques. At this moment, Rayya suddenly shouted. Pong, 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 pong. In the next moment, a large number of clones, thousands of people, appeared instantly. Seeing this scene, Otonin, who was about to rush up, couldn't help but pause. Shadow clone only. Go. But shortly afterwards, they came back to their senses and continued to rush up. Even if shadow clone is an entity, no matter how large the number is, the total amount of chakra remains unchanged. In the final analysis, it's just a chakra of one person. What's to be afraid of? You hide in these clones and don't come into contact with the enemy. Rayya confessed to Tomohisa and the others, and then mixed into the clone. It's not shadow clone, it's just a normal score. A sound of Shinobu pierced a clone easily, was a little startled, and then shouted excitedly to his companion. Leaf hurricane. But at this moment, a clone beside him suddenly kicked. Boom. At the next moment, the famous Otonobuya was kicked and exploded before he could finish speaking. Quote exclamation mark exclamation mark exclamation mark quote. Seeing this scene, other Otoninbu was shocked immediately. In fact, without the reminder of the sound of the ninja body, they have already seen that these are ordinary clones without entities, not shadow clone at all. Rayya yelled so much just now, but it was just a cover for bluffing. But the crux of the problem now is that in these clones, Rayya's body is hidden, which is a huge threat. Find out who he is. There are many perceptual ninjas among Otonin, and they quickly began to explore. How can that be? But soon they discovered that these clones were all the same as the real ones. Regardless of the breath, or the chakra situation, there is no flaw at all. Although they are not entities, these clones can be called perfect clones. Draw a knife. At this time, Rayya didn't stop, and with a loud shout, he killed another Otonin again. Destroy all these clones. Since it can't be found, it's all destroyed. The sound of Shinobu rushed forward and attacked these clones indiscriminately. Pong, pong, pong. These clones have no entities, as long as they attack slightly, they will dissipate immediately. Now it's right. Rayya was mixed in the clone, but smiled at the corner of his mouth. He didn't expect these clones to defend against enemies, he just used these clones as cover for the Chihisa trio. Now, all Otonin's attention was attracted by these clones, and Chihisa and the others were temporarily safe. Leaf hurricane. With no worries, Rayya mixed in with the clone and began to attack the enemy unscrupulously. Clone technique. At the same time, Clone technique was used again one after another, maintaining the number of clones above 5 or 600. The tree world is here. After holding on to this for a few minutes, he suddenly shouted. The saplings drilled out from the ground, and then quickly grew into a big tree in the sky. In a blink of an eye, the original empty space has been filled with trees. In the collision of these trees, Ryuya's clone was wiped out almost instantly. Found it. It's him. After losing cover, the Ryuya team was instantly exposed to the enemy. Otonin was excited, and rushed up yelling. Reikiri, Leonwa. At this moment, two figures suddenly appeared, and with two loud shouts, they instantly killed the two Otonin. Finally, Ryuya smiled, and reinforcements came. It's Mr. Kakashi, and Mr. Guy. Facing the hideous nearly 100 Otonin, the trio of Juju turned pale in fright. Seeing the figure that suddenly appeared, I was first startled, and then full of joy. Konoha's copies of the ninja and the blue beast are reassuring. It's Konoha Shinobi. On the other side, Otoninbu was also taken aback. Only two. But then, when I saw Kakashi and Guy alone, there was another sneer, showing a hideous face again. There are nearly 100 of them, just two of them, they are looking for death. Kill them. With a loud shout, Otonin rushed up again to kill with Ryuya and the others, along with Kakashi and Guy. Fire style. Ashes burned. Boom. And just at this moment, a cloud of smoke came, and with a loud shout, it exploded in an instant, blasting Kiba, Mingyan Ren. Tree-bound kill. 8 trigrams 64 palms. Shadow imitation is successful. Immediately afterwards, with a loud shout, one figure appeared one after another. Everyone is here. The Konoha shinobi and Sand shinobi, seeing the sudden appearance of a large number of reinforcements, Chihisa's Trio 3 was agitated again, and finally saved. It's really timely. Ryuya chuckled slightly, and he couldn't help but let out a sigh of relief. According to previous detections, it would take 10 minutes for reinforcements to arrive. But now only 5 or 6 minutes have passed, and it is clear that the reinforcements found that they were in a dangerous situation, and they came desperately. I just cleaned up those annoying clones. Before I had time to attack Ryuya, so many reinforcements suddenly appeared. At this time, the sound of Shinobu who had reacted was full of anger. Kill Takagi Ryuya. Then with a roar, he rushed straight to Ryuya. They got the order to kill Ryuya desperately. Go. The previous account is about to be settled with you. The order from the coalition was to protect Ryuya, and he greeted him without hesitation. The next moment, nearly 200 people, 200, they fought together. In terms of numbers, there is not much difference between the two sides. But in terms of overall strength, Otonin was even better than the coalition forces. After all, if it weren't the case, the previous teams didn't need to retreat. But at this time, the various teams together, taking care of each other, cooperating, and temporarily containing the enemy, there is still no problem. Reikiri. Kakashi turned to kill another Otonin again, and said with a smile. Leave it to us here. Leave Hurricane. Guy kicked a note, and Ryuya gave a thumbs up. Go boy, go finish your mission. Go, Ryuya, go, Takagi Ryuya. At this time, all the coalition forces yelled at Ryuya as they tried their best to fight with Otonin. Everyone. Ryuya looked at everyone and nodded slightly. Take care. Whoosh. The next moment, the body shape disappears directly, and through the body replacement technique, it flashes out of the battlefield in an instant, with everyone's expectations, heads straight to Otonin village. Ryuya. Looking at the place where Ryuya disappeared, Chihisa, Coriander, and Konohamaru couldn't help feeling lost, and then suddenly smiled. The three of them back to back, relying on each other, and joined the battle. The difference in strength is too far. Continue to be together, they will only drag Ryuya's hind legs. However, even Jonin, they have something they can do. For example, they tried their best and even their lives to stop Otoninu here. What? Konoha, Sand Shinobi's reinforcements arrived, Otonin was dragged, Ryuya rushed out and surrounded, and quickly approached Otonin village. Orochimaru, who received the news, couldn't help being taken aback, his face instantly gloomy. But then, there was another sneer at the corner of his mouth. Tsunade, I didn't expect you to value this child so much, so you can do it this way. Master Orochimaru, what shall we do next? Do opened his mouth and asked. In order to deal with this war, we mobilized some manpower from the north and south strongholds, some of which have not been put on the battlefield. One more thing, Sasuke can also play at any time. No need. Orochimaru waved his hand and said faintly. Let him come. What do you mean? I will kill him myself. Orochimaru's pupils suddenly shrank, and his face grew yellow. In order to make Rayya rush out of the encirclement, Tsunade even made the other teams that had finally evacuated return to the battlefield again. It can be seen that she has high hopes for Rayya, and even expects him to destroy Otonin village with one person. Only a single person wants to destroy Otonin village, which is an insult to Orochimaru. However, it is because of this that things are more interesting. Since Tsunade had high hopes for Rayya, Orochimaru personally killed him, cruelly and completely shattered Tsunade's hope. Swish, swish, swish. Rayya used body replacement technique one after another and quickly approached Otonin village. At the same time, I couldn't help wondering that there was no interception on this road. As a traverser, Rayya knows that Orochimaru's strength is not only the current one. Who cares? Things are abnormal, but Rayya has used radar ears to detect it, and there is indeed no enemy in ambush. In that case, I simply ignored it and continued to drive with all my strength. So in less than an hour, Rayya walked through a forest. Standing on the treetops and looking forward, I saw that there was a small village in the clearing, and it was Otonin village. At this time, it was late at night, dark clouds covered it, and the unlit village of Otonin was completely shrouded in darkness. In this case, Otonin village couldn't be unprepared. Rayya didn't dare to approach it rashly, so he used the radar ear to detect it first. Finally reached. At the same time, Tsunade and Baki in Konoha Hokage's office are staring nervously at the crystal ball. Rayya finally arrived at Otonin village, but at the same time, Rayya also reached the deepest point of danger. At this time, Otonin village was like a huge trap in the dark, and like a giant beast with its mouth wide open. As long as Rayya takes half a step, he will tear him apart. Even though they are far apart, Tsunade and Baki can't help but worry about Rayya. Escape. At this time, Rayya has already explored the entire village. Unexpectedly, there are actually not many people in the village. But on second thought, Otonin village was originally small, and not all of Orochimaru's subordinates were in the village. In order to intercept the coalition forces of Konoha and Sand Shinobi, most of the people in the village were sent out. Okay. Just as Rayya was thinking about it, her face suddenly changed. The next moment, accompanied by the sharp wind, a bit of cold light shot out from the center of the village and headed straight to Rayya. Sword. As the next moment approached, Rayya suddenly saw that it was not a hidden weapon, but a sharp sword that stretched hundreds of meters. Kusunaru sword Sora no Tachi. Orochimaru's unique move, a long or short Kusunaru sword protruding from its mouth. In addition to sharpness, its huge impact is enough to fly Naruto with its out-of-control tail beast. Did you do it yourself? After the body replacement technique escaped, hiding among the dense trees, Ryuya's face was serious looking at the direction the Kusana sword stretched out. In this way, one of the several voices in the village just now is Orochimaru himself. Snake stepping. While Rayuya was thinking about it, the village suddenly shouted, it was Orochimaru. Immediately afterwards, I saw two giant snakes, 100 meters long, flying out of the village and falling into the woods. Boom, boom. Under the unbridled impact of these two giant snakes, the big tree surrounded by several people broke down. The originally dense woods were in a mess in a blink of an eye. Whoosh. Rayuya, hiding in the bushes, in order to avoid being affected, can only move and avoid again. Ha ha. At this moment, a chilling laughter suddenly sounded behind him. The corner of Ryuya's eyes curled, and he just saw a pair of snake-like pupils. It was Orochimaru. Latent shadow and more snake hands. The moment Rayuya was found, Orochimaru's attack had arrived. Dozens of fierce lion majesty sprang from the cuffs of Orochimaru, threatening, restraining, blocking, biting, performing their duties, cooperating with each other, and rushing to Rayuya together. Cut. Faced with such a vicious move, Ryuya's face was serious, already holding the handle of the knife with his right hand, and instantly drew the knife and slashed. It was not a straight slash, but a circle, and the light of the knife was like a full moon, spreading around. Cut the lion majesty that came up in half. Ha! But then, there was a sound of breaking through the air, and the Kusunaru sword in Orochimaru's mouth stabbed Rayya again. Whoosh! Rayya had been prepared for a long time, and used the body replacement technique to directly move away. The next moment, Rayya reappeared, standing in a clearing a dozen meters away from Orochimaru. Quote. Seeing that Kusunaru's sword was retracted and Orochimaru was looking at her with a cold face, Rayya couldn't help but frown secretly. The surroundings of Orochimaru are clean, without any 11 kilograms objects. He couldn't pass the body replacement technique and directly move to his side to launch a surprise attack. I don't know if this is a coincidence or Orochimaru deliberately. Whoosh whoosh. Anyway, try to find out. Rayya raised his hand and shot a few kunai at Orochimaru. Hey! Orochimaru sneered twice before flashing directly to the side. Whoosh! The next moment, while Kuwu flew over Orochimaru's side, Rayya used the body replacement technique to move directly to Orochimaru's side. Leaf Hurricane. Then he didn't hesitate, just a kick to shout. But unfortunately, Orochimaru's figure suddenly retreated, and directly avoided the kick. Under this kind of surprise, even if it is fast, it is difficult to avoid. Unless before that, there has been a prediction. Immediately afterwards, Orochimaru stepped back more than 10 meters. While standing still, his sleeves swept away, sweeping away all the surrounding rocks and wood blocks, making the surrounding area a clean open space. I was seen through. In the Naruto office, Tsunade and Baki frowned when they saw this scene. Obviously, Orochimaru has mastered detailed information on Ryuya's abilities. Ryuya's displacement is actually body replacement technique. Since it is the body replacement technique, there must be a replacement object. In this way, as long as you pay attention to the objects that can be replaced, you can predict the location of Ryuya's flash and respond to dodge. In fact, Orochimaru has been collecting information about Konoha's destruction plan since he was ruined by Rayya. Even if there are some omissions, in this operation, several waves of people were sent to intercept, and the omissions have been checked in several battles. Multiple shadow clone technique. Rayya looked serious, then gave a soft drink, and separated thousands of clones. Ryuya's attack mainly relies on physical skills and requires close proximity. Since the body replacement technique has been seen through, it will cause harassment and look for opportunities for displacement. The array of 10,000 snakes. Facing the forward clone, Orochimaru's face was as usual, and countless small snakes were directly spit out from his mouth. Pong pong pong. The snake swarm was like a sea wave, instantly submerging Ryuya's clone. And these, ordinary clones, under the attack of the little snake, one by one directly turned into a bubble. Immediately afterwards, the group of snakes rushed towards Rayya, who was exposed, trying to swallow him directly. Cut. Facing the ferocious snakes, Ryuya's face was serious, and he slashed directly with a sword light. Under the sharp sword aura, the severed little snake flew up, and at the same time, directly opened a path among the snakes. Ta ta ta. Taking advantage of this opportunity, Rayya hurriedly broke out. Cut. While protruding the snake formation, another sword slashed directly towards Orochimaru. Hey! Orochimaru sneered at the corner of his mouth. He had already understood Ryuya's dagger. Although drawing the sword and slashing quickly, it will take a certain amount of time for the sword to travel at a long distance. Before that, just pay attention to the timing of Ryuya's hand holding the handle of the knife to avoid it. Swish swish swish. Sideways and easily avoided this slash. Orochimaru was proud of it when he suddenly caught a glimpse of it from the corner of his eyes. Behind the sword light, there are still 4 kunai. The slash just now is just a cover. Ryuya's real purpose is to shoot kunai. Orochimaru's face changed in an instant, and he quickly prepared to defend against Ryuya's displacement based on the position of kunai. Attack. Okay, but the next moment, what surprised Orochimaru was that Kuwu flew by his side. Rayya did not show up, he did not use the body replacement technique. Clang clang clang. At this moment, due to the shooting angle problem, several Kumaru collided together, and then the running track changes. This is. Orochimaru was startled, and suddenly there was a kind of bad feeling in his heart. Whoosh. And at this moment, Rayya shifted and appeared directly behind Orochimaru a few meters away. A few meters apart, with Ryuya's technique, it should not be easy to attack. Raid. When Orochimaru was wondering, Ryuya's figure disappeared again. Orochimaru was stunned again. There were obviously no objects to move around him. Puff. But the next moment, Rayya had already rushed behind Orochimaru, and then there was a muffled sound. Ah! Orochimaru's body instantly stiffened, feeling tingling, hot, and full of anger in his heart. At the same time, he just remembered that, apart from Substitute and Seal Ninja, Rayya was the first and even forgotten Great Demon King name. Quote. At this moment, the entire Hokage office was full of embarrassment when seeing this scene. Such a serious battle, to use this method, it is really inappropriate. Especially Tsunade can't help but recall the pain that year. Shindao waited for Rayya to come back, and must clean up him. Orochimaru. Sir. Somewhere outside Otonin village, I have been watching this battle. When he saw Orochimaru, who was acting like a god, it was also an instant dumbfounded. Leaf Hurricane. At this moment, the successful Rayya yelled and kicked Orochimaru. By drawing the sword and cutting the sword chi as a cover, he shoots the kunai and then uses the shuriken technique. Change the trajectory of Kuwu. In the end, body replacement technique, 1,000 years of death 2-stage displacement, and finally approached Orochimaru. Bang! The next moment, with a muffled noise, Orochimaru, who was too late to react, was kicked directly by Rayya. Boom! Orochimaru flew out thousands of meters and hit a hill. With a loud roar, the mountain fell apart in an instant. Quote. Seeing this scene, Tsunade, Baki and others, who were still full of embarrassment just now, all changed their faces and their eyes were full of horror. They know that Ryuya's legs are very heavy, but they never thought it was so heavy. The power of a foot, the mountain collapsed and the ground cracked. Great! Immediately after regaining consciousness, everyone was excited again. Under such a kick, it is impossible for anyone to be alive. This stinky boy. Immediately afterwards, Tsunade couldn't help but shook his head and smiled bitterly. Compared with Ryuya's foot, his weird power hurts his feet. It is simply pediatrics. If I want to ravage Rayya in the future, I'm afraid I have to think about it, at least find a plausible reason. Master Orochimaru. At the same time, seeing Orochimaru being kicked into the air, his face changed suddenly, and he rushed over. Wow! Boom! And just when everyone thought that Orochimaru was bound to die, a broken body slowly creeped out among the broken rocks. How can that be? This body is the face of Orochimaru. Tsunade and others with horror, a landslide and a foot, how could Orochimaru be alive? Then, I saw Orochimaru's mouth widened, and his body was covered with mucus. Get out of it! A heavy kick. Orochimaru moved his new body, glanced at the completely broken old body on the ground, couldn't help but sneered at the corner of his mouth, and suddenly rushed towards Rayya like crazy. Body replacement technique. As if it had been expected, Rayya sighed helplessly. If anyone in this world is the hardest to kill, except for the truly immortal Kagaya, it is probably Orochimaru. He is a forbidden man, far more difficult than Hidan. The snake flow body replacement technique, which uses the external body as a substitute, after receiving the attack, then transfers the body from the mouth. It can be said that it is the most perfect and most unsolvable body replacement technique. Trouble. Seeing Orochimaru rushing up, Rayya frowned again. A tactic is difficult to work twice, but even if it can give Orochimaru a heavy blow, who knows, he still has a few substitutes to take a step back. Even if Orochimaru is killed, he can still be resurrected from the curse. It's just a rotten snake of immune to death. Hanging on with Orochimaru like this, absolutely asking for it. But at this time Orochimaru has rushed forward, and Rayya can only meet temporarily. Quote. In the Naruto office, looking at the crystal ball, Rayya, Tsunade and others who were fighting Orochimaru again frowned. Although I don't want to admit it, it is true that killing Orochimaru is an impossible task. And at this time, after successfully helping Rayya break through the siege, the coalition forces have retreated again in order to prevent casualties. A large number of Otonin is quickly returning to Otonin village. If the entanglement continues, when the Otonin army arrives, Rayya will be surrounded again. With the difficult Orochimaru, I am afraid it is really dangerous. Cancel the task. At this moment, Baki spoke. In the current situation, if you don't want Rayya to sacrifice, you can only abandon the mission. Trying his best, he managed to achieve this point, but in the end he had to give up. Tsunade was full of anger. But she also knew that there was no other choice at all. Immediately afterwards, Tsunade will send a message to Rayya in battle through Ninhawk. Whoosh! And just at this moment, Rayya suddenly shifted and moved away from Orochimaru. What is he going to do? Tsunade, who was about to perform the operation, couldn't help but stop, and suddenly left the battle. Could it be that Rayya already knew the situation and wanted to give up the mission? Do you want to run? Looking at Rayya, Orochimaru's eyes were cold. Rayya broke his plan one after another, and he hated Rayya for a long time. The most important thing is that Rayya's growth rate is so fast. In order to avoid future troubles, he must kill Rayya this time. Orochimaru. But Rayya didn't seem to have the intention of running away. Looking at Orochimaru, suddenly smiled and asked, "Have you ever felt the pain?" Hearing this, Orochimaru looked at Rayya's gaze, and it was extremely cold in an instant. Of course he has felt the pain. Parents, partners, Orochimaru once watched them die one by one. It is this pain in knowing the fragility of life that he will embark on the wrong path of studying the immortality forbidden technique. Rayya suddenly asked him this at this time, and inadvertently, he uncovered the deepest scar in his heart. Takagi Rayya. An angry Orochimaru made a sound of glass rubbing in his mouth, and then he was about to rush up again, killing Rayya completely. Leaf Hurricane. At this moment, Rayya suddenly performed kicking skills again. But given the distance between him and Orochimaru, it is impossible to work. Besides, Rayya's kick was not aimed at Orochimaru, but at the sky. Whoosh whoosh. The sound of breaking through the air sounded, and a dozen kunai were kicked directly into the sky by Rayya. This is. Everyone, whether it was Tsunade who were observing them through a crystal device, or the scene, Orochimaru, Pocket, all have a look of doubt. What Rayya is going to do? Whoosh whoosh. Then, Rayya used body replacement technique one after another through replacement kunai, constantly flashing into the air. In a blink of an eye, Rayya didn't stop until it was tens of thousands of meters above the sky. At this time, a gust of wind blew and the dark clouds dispersed. Rayya flashed into the sky, with a full moon behind him. Orochimaru. When everyone was puzzled, Rayya suddenly laughed wildly and let out a roar. Ha ha, feel the pain. Fire style. Great fireball technique. Great fireball. Everyone was puzzled again. Under this circumstance, what can a great fireball do? Boom, boom, This is. But the next moment, in the midst of a loud roar, when seeing the huge great fireball spouting from Rayya's mouth, the volume quickly expanded, and instantly reached a kilometer in diameter. Everyone was stunned. What is that? At this moment, the group of Yin Ren who was about to rush to the village suddenly heard a loud noise, subconsciously followed the prestige, and then instantly widened their eyes. I saw that under the full moon, a huge round of fireball, like a red sun, wrapped in the momentum of the thunderbolt, and fell towards Jonin village. Boom! In the next moment, as the fireball fell to the ground, amidst the loud noise, the earth trembled violently, and the raging and spreading fire light instantly brightened the night like day. The Great Fireball Technique strengthens +86. The fireball has a diameter of 1 kilometer, and the flame and impact generated after the explosion can cover a radius of 1 kilometer. As a small ninja village, Jonin village occupies a total area of less than 2 kilometers. When the fireball fell to the ground and exploded, the resulting flames and strong wind instantly engulfed the entire village. Not only that, because of the large range, Orochimaru, who was outside the village, was also swallowed by the flames. What is that? At this moment, everyone in Tianjiguo witnessed this giant great fireball, and couldn't help falling into a huge panic. When the fireball exploded, Jonin village had completely disappeared from the surface, leaving only a huge deep pit several kilometers in diameter. And on the extension of the giant pit, there are black burning traces that are several kilometers long. Did you make it? In Hokage's office, it wasn't until a long while before everyone gradually came back to their senses. Even if Orochimaru's vitality is stubborn, it should have been burned to ashes by this fireball. According to the observation of ninja, impure world reincarnation has been relieved. Tsunade looked serious and said something. Great. Hearing this, everyone couldn't help being excited. Now that the impure world reincarnation is lifted, it means that the operator is dead. I'm afraid the fact is just the opposite. At this moment, Tsunade spoke again, his expression becoming more solemn. As Naruto in the Senju clan, she knows impure world reincarnation far better than others. Once this ninjutsu is cast, it will not be lifted with the death of the caster. At this time, impure world reincarnation is lifted. It must be Orochimaru's initiative, which just shows that Orochimaru is not dead. How could this happen? After listening to Tsunade's explanation, everyone was stunned and couldn't help but frown. No, Orochimaru is dead. At this moment, Baki suddenly spoke with a serious expression. We must announce the death of Orochimaru to the outside world. Not bad. Immediately afterwards, Konoha's two advisory elders also said confidently. Orochimaru has died under the joint crusade by Konoha and Sand Shinobi. This time Konoha and Sand Shinobi have joined forces, so that if they do nothing, they will definitely become the laughingstock of the entire ninja world. Therefore, the two great nations that are ridiculed will also hold the village accountable. In fact, if it weren't for Ryuya's lonely entry, this ending is doomed. For the sake of face, they must declare to the public that they have killed Orochimaru and eradicated Otonin village. Leave aside Orochimaru's life and death, from today, Otonin village has become history. This is politics, and Tsunade doesn't want to interfere too much. Then he picked up the pen and stroked Otonin village on the map. A1 fireball from Ryuya completely erased Otonin village. Is that really great fireball just now? At this moment, I couldn't help but think of the terrifying fireball just now. Baki's face was particularly solemn, and he said in a deep voice. I suggest to classify this technique as the great fireball technique listed as a banned technique. Tsunade asked with a smile. After all, this is only a high-level ninjutsu widely used by fire-style ninjas. There is indeed something wrong. Baki thought for a while, then added. Only for Takagi Ryuya. Okay. Tsunade groaned slightly, and couldn't help nodding. For Sand Shinobi, Ryuya's technique is too terrifying. Because of fear, he proposed to list it as a forbidden technique. As for Konoha, although there is no need to worry, Ryuya threw this technique to Konoha. But we also have to consider its huge range of destructiveness, threats to peers and the environment. From this point of view, it is not excessive to list Ryuya's great fireball technique as a forbidden technique. Where is Ryuya now? Having said that, someone couldn't help but ask. Just now, at the moment when the fireball exploded, because it underestimated its power range, Shinobu couldn't evade in time, and was affected and killed. Without the ninja eagle, the peeping ninjutsu was interrupted, and the crystal ball was gone at that time. Although immediately after, Tsunade replaced it with another ninja eagle, which originally monitored Otonin. But when he flew over the explosion site, there was no trace of Ryuya. In fact, except for Ryuya, such as Orochimaru and Tu, there is no one person on the ground, or traces of creatures. He should be back soon. Tsunade smiled and said, after all, the task has been completed. Hearing this, everyone was refreshed and full of expectations for Ryuya's return. After all, without Ryuya this time, Konoha and Sand Shinobi will completely become a laughingstock. And Ryuya, who saved the fig leaves of the two villages, is both a hero and their hero. Konoha and Sand Shinobi were thinking about how to meet the hero Ryuya. Come out. Ryuya, who was on the way back, suddenly stopped, turned to face a bush, and said lightly. Wow. Then, with a soft noise, a woman from the bushes came out. After leaving Otonin village, Ryuya soon discovered that someone was following. At first I thought it was an enemy, but later discovered that the other party just followed, as if there was no intention to attack. But after all, the origin is unknown, and he can't just bring his tail back to the village, and Ryuya simply forces the other party to show up. Don't wait. Ryuya did it, just a word, and he walked out obediently, but, honestly. Why is she? Ryuya, who was about to ask, when she saw the woman clearly, she couldn't help being startled again. The red hair and pupils, as well as the iconic glasses, are exactly Aroma Phosphorus. In the Chunin exam that year, Ryuya deliberately rushed to save her in front of Sasuke in order to plant the seeds of love for Aroma Phosphorus. Later, Xianglin was eliminated and returned to Gara and Village with his companions, and there was no news. But according to the original plot, she should have fallen into Orochimaru's hands, and because of her excellent perception ability, she has become the head of its southern base. From the timeline, at this time, the incense phosphorus should be based in the south. How did it reach the headquarters of Oto Village? But speaking of it, the development of things today has long been separated from the original work, and there is no clear timeline. It's really you, Takagi Rayya. At this time, seeing Ryuya's fragrant phosphorus, I couldn't help but feel excited. During this war, she was transferred from a stronghold in the south. But because of some things, time was delayed on the road. When she arrived, she happened to see Hepingyan Ninja Village. While shocked, through his keen perception, he discovered Ryuya's chakra and chased him up. Since the Chunin exam that year, Ryuya's figure has been constantly appearing in her dreams for the past 2 years. I finally saw you again. Although Rayya has grown into a teenager, his face has not changed much. After confirming that it was him, Xianglin rushed forward with a shout and hugged Rayya. From today, I will follow you. Takagi, just accept me, I am very capable. Seeing Takagi's face with a cold face, for fear of being rejected, Xianglin began to sell himself vigorously. My perception ability is very strong, and I also have some medical ninja abilities. If you are injured, just bite me and you can recover. Of course, Rayya knows very well about the ability of incense phosphorus and appreciates it. If this were not the case, why did he try to save Chunin in front of Sasuke and make her fall in love with him? Therefore, even if phosphorus says nothing, Rayya will find a way to collect her as a subordinate. Is it just that? But since Xianglin worked so hard, Rayya always had to cooperate. Deliberately curled his mouth slightly, and looked unsatisfied. Of course it's not just that. Xianglin was anxious for a while, as if suddenly remembering, and then quickly said. In addition to these, I also know an important piece of information. Intelligence. Yes it is. Seeing that Rayya was a little interested, Xianglin nodded vigorously, and then asked mysteriously. Do you know the tail beast? Tailed beast. Rayya was slightly startled, and couldn't help but be a little surprised. The tail beast can be said to be one of the strongest forces in the world. But not many people really know this name. Ryuya's real surprise is that Xianglin actually has information about the tail beast. The so-called tail beast is a beast with powerful power. I thought that Rayya didn't understand it, and Xianglin seemed to be inspired, and then introduced it in detail. I have to say that what Xianglin really knows is not too small. But unfortunately, it is just some basic information. Where is Three Tails? No waiting. After Xianglin finished speaking, Rayya interrupted her and asked directly. Three Tails. Rayya you. Xianglin, who was still excited just now, was stunned for an instant, looking at Rayya in disbelief. How do you know that the information I'm talking about is about Three Tails? The 9 big-tailed beasts belong to the 5 hidden villages and the Takanin village, and the Three Tails, which originally belonged to Kurigakure, has been in the wild after the death of its Jinchuriki. In the original plot, Orochimaru sent someone to capture Three Tails for a certain purpose. At this time, when Xianglin mentioned the tail beast, it must be related to Three Tails. And what Rayya cares about now is the specific location of Three Tails. Although he is a traverser, he only knows that Three Tails is lurking in a certain lake. With this little information alone, where is the world so big? It seems that you, Rayya, know far more than I thought. After regaining her senses, Xianglin couldn't help but re-examine Rayya, and then she looked like an idiot again. It's really the man I like. Help me find Three Tails, and I will accept you as a subordinate. Leave this to me. Hearing this, Xianglin was immediately refreshed, and his face was full of joy. Immediately afterwards, he originally planned to return to Konoha, i.e. diversion. Under the guidance of Xianglin, I went to find Three Tails Gifu. Orochimaru knew the location of Three Tails from nowhere, and he seemed to have the power to control Three Tails, so he was planning to send someone to capture it. As a tail beast, Three Tails is too strong. In order to ensure the success of the operation, Orochimaru has selected many masters from various strongholds, including the southern stronghold that Xianglin is responsible for. It is precisely because of this that Xianglin obtained information about the location of Three Tails. Since you have prepared so well, why didn't Orochimaru succeed? Because they didn't go at all. Just as Orochimaru gathered all the men and horses, he suddenly received news that Konoha and Sand Shinobi were about to attack. Therefore, the Three Tails capture plan was immediately cancelled, and the hands were assembled to deal with the attacks of Konoha and Sand Shinobi. Rayya nodded slightly, and couldn't help but feel lucky. Next, the two left the country of Tien and came to a small country near the sea in the north. According to Shangrin, she didn't know the exact location of Three Tails, only that it was located in a huge lake in this country. Rayya, don't worry, I will find it. Seeing Ryuya's unhappy face, Shangrin quickly promised. Then what are you waiting for? Ryuya's face sank, and he snarled. Hurry up and look for it. Yes, Shanglin responded and immediately went to look for it. This country is not big, but because of the sea, there are many lakes in the territory. But as long as you look everywhere, as long as Three Tails is indeed here, with Shangrin's perception ability, you will definitely be able to find it. Seeing Shangrin leaving, Rayya couldn't help but smile. This woman is really cute. Am I being too fierce to her? Rayya is really not good at getting along with women. Shin said that if Shangrin can really help him find Three Tails, then treat her better and count it as a reward. Clone technique. Immediately afterwards, Rayya took a deep breath, stopped thinking about other things, and became thousands of clones. Earth style, earth flow wall. Then more than 1,000 clones began to practice together. Through the improvement of the Sarutobi secret medicine, although the qualification has been improved, it is still very poor. As Tuliubi, as a ninja, if you practice step by step, I am afraid it will take at least a few years. There is no way, Rayya can only practice with the clone again. Pong, pong, pong. In the evening, Rayya, who had been practicing for a day, released his clone. Ha, ha. In the next moment, all the accumulated fatigue of the clones was instantly concentrated in the body. Even Rayya, who had strengthened his heart and improved his physique, couldn't help but instantly sit on the ground, sweating and panting heavily. Rayya. At this time, Shangrin just came back and saw Rayya in this state. She couldn't help being shocked, and hurriedly rushed over. Are you hurt? No, only, just a little tired. That's good. Seeing that Rayya was not injured, Shangrin breathed a sigh of relief, then rolled up his sleeves, with a few teeth marks on his arms, and leaned to Ryuya's mouth. Bite me. Ah. Rayya bit down along the tooth marks. Immediately afterwards, I only felt that the fatigue of the body was quickly disappearing. Even the severely consumed chakra is recovering quickly. Shangrong has a special physique, which can gather chakra on the surface of the body to form tooth marks. As long as you bite these tooth marks, you can heal wounds, restore physical strength, chakra, etc. I have to say that with this ability alone, Shangrin can't lose any medical ninja. It is a treasure. However, Ryuya's consumption was indeed high, and he almost bit Shangrin all over his body. Only then did he finally recover completely. He couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief, and then asked. Did you find it? No. Shangrin, who was crying so painfully, heard this, and was worried for a while, for fear that Rayya would despise her as useless and abandon her. Continue to look for tomorrow. But Rayya said something, and then turned to sleep. Shangrin couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief, and at the same time secretly made up his mind to find Three Tails tomorrow. Even the way you sleep is so charming. And looking at Rayya, who fell asleep quickly, Shangrin is a nympho with a full face. I hope everyone will support it and subscribe more.